Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 6, 2026 meeting of the Pasadena Rental Housing Board. We'll go ahead and start with roll call.
Board Member Bell.
Here.
Board Member Coer is absent. Board Member Dunlop.
Here.
Board Member Farmer.
Here.
Board Member Goin, he is absent. Board Member Jackish.
Here.
Board Member Meserobian.
Present.
Board Member Naheda.
Here.
Board Member Wernberg.
Here.
Chair Henry.
Present.
Vice Chair Rodriguez.
Present.
Alternate Board Member Dreyer.
Here.
Excellent. I'll go ahead and pass it to our interpreter to make an announcement regarding our Spanish language community members.
Do I get to vote today? Yeah, going, no. It's going in at large.
Thank you. Good evening. If you would like to listen to the live interpretation of this meeting in Spanish, at the bottom right of your screen, you will see a globe icon. Please click on it and select Spanish. If you are on a tablet or a smartphone, at the bottom of your screen, there are 3 dots. Select Interpretation and then choose Spanish. Thank you. Buenas noches. Si usted desea escuchar esta reunión en español en su computadora, en la parte de abajo, en el lado derecho, encontrará un mundo. Por favor, haga clic y seleccione Español. Si está en un tablet o celular, en la parte de abajo hay 3 puntos. Haga clic y seleccione Interpretación y elige Español. Gracias.
Thank you. And if you're here to make public comment, we ask that you pull a speaker's card if you're in the chambers from near the door. If you're on Zoom, you'll raise your hand. Speakers will have 3 minutes. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, my colleague Desiree will ring a bell indicating you have 30 seconds left in your remarks. Right? And with that, we'll go ahead and start with comments on items, on matters not on the agenda.
Okay, we have 2 public comments on matters not on the agenda. The first one is Adam Bray Ali.
Point of order, we have some audio issues. Just 1 minute, please. Excellent, very good. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm going to look at mine. Thank you. Members of the board, good evening. My name is Adam Bray. I'm a Pasadena realtor and property broker, and I'm speaking to you today because of the cumulative weight of the current rent stabilization policies and rental housing board decisions in Pasadena is creating a severe intended consequence. It is destabilizing the real estate sales environment, directly eroding the long-term equity of local property owners. I'm currently representing the owner of a small condominium that's located on Raymond. There's a tenant that has lived there now for 9 years and 11 months. At the 10-year mark, they're now eligible for the highest relocation fee that can only be processed by an owner-occupant moving in. The current owner lives out of the area and does not have the $30,000+ and multiple months required to ask that tenant to move. We've put the property on the open market, but as you might expect, nobody wants to purchase a property that they can't themselves move into and that has a tenant paying well below market rate rent. In short, the rules that you have created over the past several years are destroying approximately 50% of the equity of this homeowner in Pasadena. This is not a giant corporation. This is not Blackstone. This is a neighbor, a mother, and now a person who's struggling to find a way to pay her mortgage that will not be covered by the sale of the property. She reached out to the rent stabilization department for assistance and was essentially told what the rules are and was told that there is no legal way for her to ask the tenant to move unless she forces her way in by moving into the property, something that she is unable to do. This is an intended consequence. The members of the public that supported Measure H when it passed in 2022 and 2023 explicitly wrote about the destruction of property values. but nobody from the state is coming to buy that property. These rules are having a severe impact on the value of properties in Pasadena. I've been speaking about this for multiple years and trying to share the perspective of knowing that this would happen. I'm now seeing it happen, and if you'd like to have more details, I would invite you to communicate with us. Thank you.
Next is Dr. Gary Hampton Mott-Hotep.
Opening public comment Director's Report. A Director's Report is needed. Because of the fact that Executive Director Helen Morales has not given a Director's Report at least approximately 6 to 9 months, or more, I will give the Director's Report. The Director's Report begins with a question. Here is the question on everyone's mind. Why, in the hell, are there only 4 gosh darn items on the agenda, when there are many more issues and topics that are urgent and important that need to be discussed and debated? Answer. Because Executive Director Helen Morales is hell-bent on pushing her own ideological agenda items. Executive Director Helen Morales is a communist. Ask Helen Morales how many times she has visited communist Cuba and/or communist China. This is a thoroughly earned and deserved, proper debasement and necessary ridicule of the Bride of Frankenstein, Executive Director Helen Morales. I am not saying these things in an effort to lower Helen's self-esteem, it is because total trust has been lost, and Helen has no value to Pasadena, the beautiful Rose City. A vote should be taken to put founding board member Peter Dreyer's suggested agenda items, which he has very patiently advocated as a future agenda item, which founding board member Manny has also supported. However, Executive Director Helen Morales has made her own unilateral decision not to put any of board member Dreyer's suggested agenda items on the doggone agenda. Also, where in the hell is the, way overdue, Director's Report, and where is the quarterly report? That should also be voted on as a topic for an agenda item for the board meeting on August 20, 2026. Board members, here are 2 more items that you should vote to put on the agenda immediately, like next meeting, but Helen won't let you. Goldfarb and Lipman, and Beehive. In my humble opinion, Goldfarb and Lipman, and the attorney for Beehive, and any and all other legal advisors, should be investigated for very probable legal malpractice, and any other possible legal malfeasance, and/or legal misfeasance, and/or possible fraud. Here is another item that should be put on the agenda, immediately, regarding appeals. Small claims court type of hearing. The unnecessary rules and regulations exacerbate fairly simple, straightforward, easy to understand issues into highly complex legal cases. The best, most efficient and simplest method for the initial disposition of a rental housing dispute would be to come before the Rental Housing Board for a small claims type hearing, which I estimate could very possibly last an hour or less, from start to finish, and could be done as a special meeting, either before regular board meetings or even after regular board meetings should also be considered. I would like to reiterate security concern I have with Brandon, the armed security guard, for him to not be overly aggressive at the immediate adjournment of the meeting. This is my version of seeing something and saying something. Item 1, approval of minutes.
Brandon was very aggressive at the end of the meeting. He singled me out. I don't like that. I wrote a letter to the city about that.
Thank you. That concludes your time. That concludes public comments on matters not on the agenda.
Great, thank you. And just a point of order, after the meeting, sometimes there's a member of the public that just makes it loud. So per the state of California law that I can use, everyone in the chamber gets cleared. Everyone in this chamber is asked to leave at the end of the meeting. No one's singled out. It's unfortunate that we can't have a more copacetic and quiet end of a very long meeting. But staff doesn't need to do cleanup. Board members don't need to be cleaning up their items and be screamed at by a member of the public. So under the state of California law, everyone is asked to vacate the chamber. What I have observed in our Sergeant at Arms is that he is incredibly respectful and patient. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and go to the approval of minutes. So on our agenda, we have brought back to us, corrected, thank you very much, the May 21st, 2026 meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments from members before we go to public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and take public comment.
We have one public comment from Dr. Gary Hampton Madhotep.
Item 1, approval of minutes. 4, May 21st, 2026. Again, we have a extremely shoddy and shabby, and very incomplete, and intentionally biased and slanted, approval of minutes for May 21st, 2026. Also, as I just stated, there has not been an executive director's report by Helen Morales for several months. However, Helen is steadfastly promoting and pushing for more unnecessary rules and regulations that have a catastrophic negative effect on residential property values, which are plummeting because of the improper implementation of Measure
Sorry,
H,
this is
due
about
to
the minutes,
1,000
the
or
meeting
so
minutes.
pages of
Please, May 21st, 2026 meeting minute comments. This is comments about the meeting minutes. You seem to be off topic and straying.
Okay, those comments are connected to what's coming up, okay? There's a connection here. Just hold your horses. 1 second, okay? Just hold on. I'll turn it down a little bit. We'll get to it. It's just a few seconds.
Morales for several months.
Hold on.
However,
Hold on.
Helen is steadfastly promoting
on.
and pushing for more unnecessary rules and regulations
Hold
that
on.
have a catastrophic negative effect
Hold
on
on.
residential property values, which are plummeting because of the improper implementation of Measure H, due to the 1,000 or
Just
so
hold
pages
on.
of unnecessary and harmful rules and
Just
regulations,
hold on.
which promotes
I'll
totally
get there.
unnecessary friction and heated hostilities between landlords and tenants. My following comments were said during the May 21st meeting, but are not in the official minutes. A meticulous and careful videotape review of Executive Director Helen Morales' improper illegal hiring
These comments were missing. I can say this.
members.
I'm repeating comments.
Helen Morales started being the executive director in July 2024, so a good starting point for
And
video.
there's more of those.
January 2024 of all meeting discussions regarding the hiring of an executive director. My following comments was said during the May 21st meeting, but are not in the official minutes. A review of the minutes of the meetings should also be done. However, the official meeting minutes are always incomplete. So, that is why a meticulous and careful review of the actual videotape of the meeting is necessary. Even though it is somewhat time-consuming, this must be done to get full facts with knowledge of how the board was going about the hiring process, which the board failed to adhere to and follow throughout the hiring process. My following comments was said during the May 21st meeting, but are not in the official minutes. Also, the city clerk should have copies of all my public comments that I made on each and every item during this time, which will support what I am saying now. There were errors in the process, including the fact that no prospective executive director candidates never appeared before the board or the public for any type of questioning or interviewing. My following comments was said during the May 21st meeting, but are not in the official minutes. The selection process, interviewing process, etc. was done in complete secrecy, with apparently the city manager or some other official making the decision to hire Helen Morales.
You don't want to hear
Very surprisingly, Helen was
Thank
simply
you. That concludes
introduced
your
as-
time. That concludes public comments on the minutes.
Great, thank you. And the minutes are done the same way across bodies. Should someone not be happy with the way minutes are done, they are more than welcome to attend a city council meeting and make their complaints known. The council meets every Monday when they're not in recess in this chamber at 6 o'clock. All right, any last questions or reflections on the May 21st, 2026 minutes before we do a vote of approval? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Great, we'll go ahead and do roll call vote.
Okay, Board Member Bell.
Yes.
Board Member Coer is absent. Board Member Dunlop.
I need to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Board Member Farmer.
Yes.
Board Member Goyen is absent. Board Member Jackish.
Abstain.
Board Member Meserobian.
Aye.
Board Member Naheda.
Yes.
Board Member Wernberg.
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think we were all wondering if this was going to be another set of minutes. Yeah, who knew about the minutes? All right, excellent. All right, so board members and members of the public, we have under old business 3 procedural resolutions this evening. we're going to actually vote on the resolutions one by one. So I believe, Stacy, you're doing the presentation. And I'm sorry I didn't ask you before the meeting. Could we do it so we have the presentation, then a vote on the resolution for each chapter? That way we can keep it clean in our own minds for each of the resolutions. All right. Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and pass it to Stacy Horo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you and good evening, board members. Stacy Haro, Senior Hearing Officer. I'm back today with our sort of follow-up on the last meeting where we brought potential amendments to chapters 5 and 6. Today, I'm back to ask the board to adopt resolutions to amend chapters 5, 6, and 7 in accordance with the feedback and direction we received from the board at the last meeting. So, to go along with what the chair requested, I'll start with chapters 5 and 7, which both have to do with the pre-hearing settlement conferences, and then we'll stop to vote on the resolutions for chapter 5 first, and then chapter 7, which will be attachments A and B in your agenda reports.
And sorry, Stacy, to interrupt you. I know that we have to do public comment before we're best practice to any vote. Yeah, my apologies.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll take public comment after your first presentation.
Okay.
That's, I figure, the best way to keep on track. So that's just sort of heads up to members of the public.
I'm sorry, Chair, would you like to have chapter 5 presentation, public comment, then resolution, and then chapter 7 the same? Because they're the same topic, so.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
fine.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so then with that, my little clicker thing isn't clicking. Give me 1 second, sorry. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so as I was just mentioning, we're here tonight to ask the board to adopt resolutions amending chapters 5, 6, and 7, which will take one at a time. Sorry, I'm having difficulty with there it goes, with my clicker. So beginning with chapter 5 and the pre-hearing settlement conferences. So as I mentioned during the last board meeting, currently the regulations and the charter, the regulations state that prior to a hearing regarding a petition for an individual rent adjustment, that the party shall participate in a pre-hearing settlement conference. However, there's no further definition of individual rent adjustment other than the definition in the charter. So because of that, the Hearings Division has been holding pre-hearing settlement conference for all petitions, including petitions for upward adjustment of rent. However, as I mentioned in the last meeting, hearing officers cannot facilitate a settlement agreement that results in a higher than AGA annual general adjustment rent increase during the pre-hearing settlement conference for an upward adjustment of rent. Doing so would fly in the face of Article 18, so we don't do that. As a result, we start every settlement conference for those types of petitions, upward adjustments, by saying, thank you for coming, but we can't actually reach an agreement today, which frustrates parties, and they have expressed that they feel that it wastes their time to have to attend such a conference. And we believe it uses staff's limited resources unnecessarily. As a result, we asked the board to consider during the last meeting limiting pre-hearing settlement conferences to petitions for downward adjustment only, since those can result in an actual settlement agreement. So today we're back to ask the board to vote on a resolution to amend Chapter 5. And as I stated, those amendments are in Attachment A to your agenda report. And basically everywhere that it says petition for individual rent adjustment, staff is recommending that that language be changed to downward adjustment of rent specifically. So that would be in Section M, pre-hearing settlement conference, paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. So at this point, that's essentially what we're asking or recommending to the board. There's also paragraph 6, changing individual rent adjustment to downward adjustment of rent. So at this point then, I can stop my presentation here and see if the board has any questions, if you want to go to public comment, whatever the chair would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. At this time, I'll go ahead and see if there are any questions first from board members. I don't see anyone in the queue. Okay. We'll go ahead and go to public comment. So because we've got 3 resolutions, we're going to take comments at the beginning or near the beginning of this item so that we can have clean presentations and understanding on each resolution for board members. This is not precluding any member of the public's access to make comments. So this is item 2, adopting resolutions amending the Pasadena Rental Housing Board Regulations, Chapter 5, the petition process related to pre-hearing settlement conferences. Chapter 6, hearing procedures related to requests for continuances, time waivers, valuation guidelines, and board appeal de novo hearings. And Chapter 7, related items. Do we have public comment?
We have 2. The first one is Simon Gibbons.
Thank you. I apologize. This is pretty marginally on topic, but this is a complicated thing we're looking at, and none of these monitors are working. I can't really read it on this tiny screen here from the background.
No one can. Let's just do a point of order real fast, because I agree with you. This is, not ideal.
For what it's worth, it is operating on KPAS, but so the public out in the world can see it, but we can't in here. Thank you.
Still a problem. Can we get those? Are they coming up now? Okay.
Could we have this slide pulled back up?
Yeah, but is there an appropriate slide that you'd want to have up for the public?
I'll go back to the recommendation, I guess.
Okay, please.
When it comes back. So this was the recommendation for the public for the board to, oh, sorry, that's chapter 7. Let me go back one. Oh, actually, I had done them together, so I'll leave it here for both 5 and 7. To recommending that the board adopt a resolution amending chapter 5, section M, to specify that pre-hearing settlement conferences only be required for petitions for downward adjustment of rent.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for that flag from the public. Do we have another comment?
Yes, from Dr. Gary Hampton, Mott Hotel.
You board members are being bullied, outsmarted, and manipulated by Executive Director Helen Morales, with more and more unneeded, chapters 5, 6, and 7, a trifecta of more unnecessary, expensive, time-consuming, energy-consuming, in other words a huge opportunity cost. By arguing and advocating against these additional new rules and regulations, and by voting no on these proposed new rules and regulations, you will send a resounding signal to Executive Director Helen Morales to stop pushing forward with aggressive, unnecessary, confusing and hostile, and increasingly expensive to the citizens of Pasadena. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Those 9 words should scare the hell out of any common-sense American citizen. Helen is also Pasadena's deadly, Dr. Anthony Fauci, because she is killing Pasadena's housing market through the use and manipulation of her thousands of pages of nefarious rules and regulations, which should only number approximately 42 pages, up to 84 pages, which would be double the number of pages of Article 18. Vaccine-acquired immune deficiency syndrome. VAIDS, yes, it is actually now called VAIDS, which I heard for the first time
This
just
is
yesterday.
definitely off
If you
topic.
got the
This
vaccine
is
several
off
times,
topic.
maybe
You've
you
just
got
called her a
anyone
comrade and a communist and Dr. Fauci. Please come back to the resolutions that are in the agenda.
That means not being stupid enough to get a damn experimental injection, you damned by the devil useful fools and idiots. I did not wear a mask. I went to Trader Joe's. I went to Brookside Park and the Rose Bowl. My family and one took a vacation to the beach in Ventura, and my family and I vacationed at the Paris Hotel Las Vegas, without a mask, and being as bold and free as possible.
All right, you know what? You
pervasive
are
rules
actually
and
disrupting our
regulations are to
meeting. I am
Pasadena,
giving you your
what the corona
first and
vaccine is to
only
chronic-
formal warning of this evening. You have gone off topic, and dare I say it, you interrupt your own device, making it impossible for anyone in this chamber to even follow where you're going. But you are off topic, sir. This is your first and only warning. You have attended enough of our meetings to know that the Brown Act means that you need to stay on topic and not disrupt.
How much time do I have left? 42 seconds. Okay, this is on topic, okay. What I'm doing is criticizing the rules and regulations. I can do that and I can fucking cuss. We've been through this. I can say motherfucker. The city attorney told you that. You don't like to hear that shit. I'm complaining. I'm criticizing. I can criticize, and I can compare analogies. That's what I'm doing, okay? You're an idiot. I can call you an idiot. I can call you a bitch, because that's what you are by doing these things. And you're going to hear more from me.
Point of order.
Yep.
What's the point of order now?
Sir, you're out of order, Mr.
What am I
Hampton.
doing out of order? Is my time up?
Point of order.
That concludes your time. Thank you.
We know what this guy's going to say every time he steps up here. And I would appreciate him. He spends a lot of time circulating his comments in writing. And I think it would be more productive for him and for us if he could circulate his comments in writing, as he is prone to do, and then summarize them without the outbursts and the name calling and basically the violations of decorum. I don't know if we can rule on that or not, because I know he's got the right to speak, but
It's also a limited issue forum, which means we handle rent control, implementation of Measure H. We don't handle Dr. Fauci. We don't handle
Yes,
communism.
right.
I think, Member Dreyer, what you're saying, probably most everyone in this chamber wishes upon wish. He has his First Amendment rights, but we also have limits as to disruptions to our meeting. And maybe we can take this up with the bad faith actor discussion at a future meeting. Thank you.
thanks.
Right. So with that, are there any additional public comments, Desiree?
That concludes public comments on item 2.
Very good, thank you. All right, so that brings us then to the first resolution that we'd like to vote on. All right. So this is the, sorry, let me get the correct one. This is the chapter 7, right? No, chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
Thank you. So this is the resolution of the Pasadena Rental Housing Board amending the Pasadena Rental Housing Board Regulations, Chapter 5, petition process to eliminate the settlement conference requirements for upward adjustment. I don't see any questions. Do I? Oh, sorry, Member Bell, didn't see you in the queue.
I'm just there to make a motion when the time comes. Maybe the time has come.
It has.
Okay, I will just make a motion to approve the staff recommendation for chapters 5, just 5 or 5 and 7?
Just 5.
Okay, just 5.
I'll second that motion. We'll go do a roll call vote.
Board Member Bell?
Yes.
Board Member Coer is absent. Board Member Dunlop?
Yes.
Board Member Farmer?
Yes.
Board Member Going?
Yes.
Board Member Jackish?
Yes.
Board Member Meserobian?
Aye.
Board Member Naheda?
Yes.
Board Member Wernberg?
Yes.
Chair Henry?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alternate Board Member Dreyer?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. Thank you, board members. So Stacy will go ahead and go on to the next chapter.
Okay, so let's continue. So then let's look now at amendments to Chapter 7. So these Chapter 7 amendments go hand in hand with those that you just approved in Chapter 5. Because there is one paragraph in Chapter 7 regarding pre-hearing settlement conferences for upward adjustment of rent. The regulations currently state that tenants are encouraged to discuss any potential tenant hardship during a pre-hearing settlement conference. Staff is recommending striking the word settlement to turn that into tenants being encouraged to discuss any hardship during a pre-hearing conference. I will note that a pre-hearing conference and the hearing are still required, or will still be required for an upward adjustment of rent, so the tenants will still have the ability to voice their hardship concerns. So The other thing that I wanted to note for Chapter 7 is, since kind of we're in here anyway, Chapter 7 does have a typo in the amortization schedule. If it's the big chart. So if you look at Attachment B, you'll note that there's a reference made to the Mountain View Municipal Code that I'm asking, or staff is recommending the board change to Pasadena Municipal Code. So those are the two items in Chapter 7 that staff is recommending that the board adopt a resolution amending Chapter 7 to change. And let me know if you have any questions, otherwise we'll keep going. Thank you.
Any questions from board members? Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Second? Roll call vote, please.
I second.
Okay, Board Member Bell?
Yes.
Board Member Coer is absent. Board Member Dunlop?
Yes.
Board Member Farmer?
Yes.
Board Member Going?
Yes.
Board Member Jackish?
Yes.
Board Member Mezarobian?
Aye.
Board Member Naheda?
Yes.
Board Member Wernberg?
Yes.
Chair Henry?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alternate Board Member Dreyer?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And now the last
Okay,
one.
now the
Thanks,
last
Stacy.
one. So now we're moving on to Chapter 6. Now, Chapter 6 has the meat of the changes that we're discussing tonight. They are all in one resolution because it has to do with the same chapter. So I will, I guess, go through each individual topic, but the vote will be on the entire chapter unless whatever motion you make bifurcates it somehow. But right now, it's set up to be one vote for the entirety of Chapter 6. So the first topic that I want to discuss in Chapter 6 are the time waiver considerations that I brought to the board at the last meeting. I will note that Member Bell brought to our attention that there was a formatting issue in our Attachment C that went out with your agenda report. That was corrected, and an amended Attachment C was posted to the website and I believe provided to the board members. If not, I can specify or read out the language if you'd prefer. But essentially, during the last board meeting, I explained to the board that, oh, actually, I guess we're starting with board appeal postponement. Sorry about that. But the time waivers kind of go along with that, so it's kind of the same sort of topic. But as far as the board appeal hearing postponements go, that the Chapter 6 already contained regulations for postponement requests for petition hearings, but not actually for board appeals. During the last meeting, I explained the good cause reasons that are available for petition hearings and also for sort of emergency type events, and pointed out that Chapter 6 does not have that for board appeal hearings, so that rent stabilization staff, we were sort of making our own determination without having those actually codified. So I came back or to the last board meeting to ask that the board consider adding those board appeal hearing postponement requests with very similar language. And that's exactly the language that I provided in Attachment C. If you look at the postponement request for board appeals, it mirrors exactly the petition hearing language. During that last meeting, I asked the board for direction as to whom should make that decision when those board appeal postponement requests come up. And the board indicated that they would like staff to be able to make those decisions because those postponement requests come to staff, and there's really no viable, logical way to have the entire board convene to make that decision. So that's what was included in Attachment C, that language that also specifies that rent stabilization department staff would make those determinations based on these rules. So there's that. Then we were talking also about the general time waiver concept, and this is where there was a formatting issue and there was a line missing, but hopefully you all have now the new amendment to of Attachment C that includes the entire language that basically just adds in each part of Chapter 6 that describes the time frame. For example, right now, A petition hearing, according to your regulations, must be held within 60 days after the acceptance of the petition or after the completion of a pre-hearing settlement conference. And also that, to the extent practicable, an appeal hearing shall be scheduled no more than 60 days after the determination that an appeal form is complete. Well, I mean, that works great when it works, but sometimes, we have those postponement requests or there's accommodation issues or things like that that make it so that we have to go outside that 60-day time frame. As I explained during the last board meeting, currently the regulations do not include provisions requiring parties to acknowledge that and agree that we're going outside of the regulation dictated 60-day time frame. So staff made a recommendation at the last meeting that we include provisions to have a time waiver form that is required for parties to sign when such a thing occurs, where we're going to go outside of that 60-day time frame for either petition hearings or for board appeal hearings. Purpose being, we want to sort of have the written record of that everyone knows what's going on, so that doesn't become an issue later if subsequent appeals are taken or writs or things of that nature. So the board directed staff to go ahead with that, and no one had any issues with it. So with that, we're back with that language today as is included in attachment C. Okay, so that's the postponement requests, the time waiver form. Now moving on to the valuation guideline amendments. Initially at the last meeting, I had brought it to your attention or staff that AB 628 was signed in October 2025 and was regarding minimum habitability standards for working stove and refrigerator. The idea was at the time to include that language directly in the regulations. However, the board provided feedback to staff, and as well as the public provided feedback as well, that there were concerns that calling out specific items like that, the fridge or stove, would necessitate continually updating the board's regulations if and when changes to Civil Code 1941.1 were made. As a result, instead of calling specifically out that new language, staff just included a section right before the valuation guidelines indicating that hearing officers may determine that a rental unit is untenantable, say that 5 times fast, based on conditions listed in California Civil Code 1941.1. Therefore, we're not calling out anything specific. We're just saying, look, hearing officers need to also look at this state law to make sure that, it's not just evaluation guidelines they're looking at, but they're looking at these specific conditions included in that Civil Code section. That is also included in the attachment C, that updated language, right before that valuation guideline chart starts. Okay, and then finally, the Board Appeal de novo hearings, we had a discussion about that also during the last board meeting, wherein staff brought to the board's attention that currently there are no guidelines for when the board can or should consider holding a de novo hearing instead of a standard board appeal hearing. Staff brought to the attention of the board that the city of Santa Monica, as well as the city of West Hollywood, have the similar language where the board may conduct a de novo hearing upon a finding of egregious circumstances requiring a de novo hearing to rectify a manifest injustice. The board indicated agreeing with that kind of standard. Additionally, staff noted that the Chapter 6 regulations currently do not provide any standard for a de novo hearing notice for parties, any due process, and there's nothing preventing the board right now from just immediately holding a de novo hearing. Staff pointed out that the more proper due process thing to do would be to provide an at least 14-day hearing notice, as that's the hearing notice period that's given for a petition hearing. So during that meeting, staff presented the board with 3 options. Option 1 being to go ahead and include that the language for egregious circumstances, as well as the due process for de novo hearings. Option 2 being just the de novo hearing notice requirement, and option 3 being don't amend. So during that meeting, board members inquired as to how many de novo hearings other jurisdictions had done. We reached out to other jurisdictions to find that out. To date, we've received responses from the city of Mountain View and Santa Monica, who both indicated they have never done a de novo hearing. The city of this, yeah, the city of West Hollywood. We sort of have an inside tip there, but as of 2024, the answer was 0. We're still trying to get the information. Maybe there was something in the last 2 years, but as far as we know, they also have had 0. So that was just to respond to the board's question regarding that. As far as the rest of it, the board directed staff to return with proposed amendments to Chapter 6 in accordance with Option 1, which means including that egregious circumstances, guideline language, and the de novo hearing notice requirements. And that's what staff has done. I will note, and I think Member Bell had a question about this, there was some other language that was included in the City of West Hollywood's ordinance about when their board may hear new evidence. And upon further review of that, first of all, I didn't feel like there was a clear enough direction from the board regarding that, but I also think it's a little off topic. So in the sense that that wouldn't require a de novo hearing theoretically. That would be more about the board's ability during a regular appeal hearing to hear new evidence. And I think staff recommendation is that that requires a more specific, robust discussion about that. And staff can certainly bring that item back on its own for the board to discuss if ever the board wants to have the regulations updated to include that kind of language, giving them the option, or giving you guys the option to go ahead and hear that kind of evidence, but you would need guidelines for that as well. Because the way the West Hollywood language reads is that the board can hear new evidence if, they make a finding basically that the party should have, do due diligence to have that new evidence or that evidence at the previous hearing. There would be a lot more to it that was off topic for de novo hearing upon further review. So with that, I just included the language for the egregious conduct as well as the due process hearing notice in attachment C for the board to vote on. And that is the last topic in this pretty meaty Chapter 6 amendments here. So I'm available for questions or whatever the board would like to discuss. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Stacey, especially for the information around de novo hearings. I think it gives everyone, to me, I called it the nuclear option the last time we were all together. And I think the evidence from other jurisdictions bears out it is indeed a nuclear option, but one that we need guidelines for. But I hope to never press the button. All right. So Vice Chair Rodriguez, I see you in the queue.
Yeah. Thank you for that information, Stacey. Thank you for that recap and that clarification for de novo. I appreciate that. I have one question about the time waivers. You mentioned how it must be signed. Is it signed and approved by both parties or just the party that's moving?
Both parties.
Okay.
It's basically an acknowledgement form.
Agreement, yeah.
And at that point, if a party were to object, they could object in writing on that form. The form doesn't exist yet, right, until the board approves it.
Okay.
So that's something that we would take into consideration. It's basically having both parties say, look, we understand this is not going to happen within 60 days.
Got it.
Whether we agree or not, it's not happening.
Okay, cool. Mutual agreement. I like to hear that. And then that was my only question. And then I just wanted to express my favoring of option 1, especially with the information that we just got from Stacey. I understand it's important to not add in the part about new evidence, but yeah, I think we should take de novo hearings very seriously, and yeah, it should be due to egregious circumstances, and I really like the idea of providing a notice for both parties.
Thank you. Member Wernberg?
I had one question about the de novo. Did we have any provision of does the entire board have to agree to do it? I forget what the rules are with that.
It's a board vote.
It's a majority.
Majority, simple majority. Okay. And then the other thing I did just want to thank Stacey as well for that comprehensive report back. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I feel like everything's buttoned up now. I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to get a quick straw poll from the body about the last piece that Stacey had indicated around the bringing back our evidence regulations for board appeals. So can I get a show of hands if there's interest in the body to bring back discussion, because as Stacy indicated, it would be a lengthy discussion. May I see a show of hands for those who would like brought back to this body a discussion of evidence regulations around the evidence we hear in appeals? Okay, so I see Member Farmer's hand up.
Just point of information.
Yep.
I don't think I understand enough about it to say, like, the reason I checked in with staff this afternoon about whether that should have been included in the amendment was because I thought it was specific to de novo hearings, that during a de novo hearing, in the case of one, you could make a finding, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess you're already starting from scratch with the evidence anyway in a de novo hearing. So I actually don't know what this entails. So I don't think it's a top priority to bring it back, but anyway, you can go back to your straw poll now. Sorry,
I was actually just trying to get a handle on from the body.
Yeah, I don't even
This
know
is
how I would vote. Yeah.
Okay, but I'd like to, then you don't have to raise your hand. Just trying to get an appetite from the body if that's something, and I saw some hands go up pretty immediately. So I'll ask again. Thank you. So just a straw poll to see if we want to bring back discussion, and no action may be taken, but if we want to bring back discussion about our evidence regulations for appeals. So I see one hand, Member Farmer's hand, Member Dreyer's hand, Member Jaggish's hand, Member Dunlap's hand, Member Rodriguez's hand, Member Henry's hand, Member Goins' hand, and that's it. So, okay. If it's not an ask on staff, I mean, if there's, I heard from you, Stacy, that even though we got the clarification on when, what we're talking about de novo versus our regular appeals, we don't, am I hearing you correctly that if there was a question about some evidence being presented?
Right, so essentially, upon further review of the city of West Hollywood's regulations and how they work together, the other piece that I had initially included that I also thought was about their de novo hearings isn't. It's really, their regulations are a bit looser in terms of what their board or commission, whatever they call themselves, are allowed to even contemplate hearing during a regular appeal hearing. For example, your regulations are very specific and limit you only to the four corners of the hearing record. The city of West Hollywood has that one provision which I included and hopefully didn't open Pandora's box, but where basically it allows them to hear new evidence during an appeal hearing if parties can show that there's some majorly good reason that they could not have produced that at the original hearing. That even through all the due diligence in the world, or it wasn't available, but there's certain other parts to it I don't have in front of me about like mere inconvenience, things like that not being enough. But the reason I said that I think it needs to not be part of this discussion is because it's not actually about the de novo hearing process. And Member Bell is correct that in a de novo hearing, you're hearing all the evidence from scratch. So at that point, that party would have the option to bring that new evidence anyway, because you're hearing it all for the first time. But what that really speaks to is a standard garden variety appeal hearing, and whether or not you want to open up that possibility to allow new evidence or to stay to the four corners of the appeal record, which is what you have now. I believe that requires more research from staff and more a more thorough investigation and a discussion from the board, and isn't a part of this de novo discussion.
Thank you, and that answered most of my question. I guess I was just trying to figure out, kind of speaking to also like our priorities, like, staff already has a lot of work to do. If you haven't identified, if we're good on where we're at for evidence regarding, with the appeals, that's fine. If the body has a different opinion, or if, we wanted to update regulations to allow for the scenario that you just presented, that's why I was taking the straw poll from the body. But I also recognize that we've got things pretty tightly
Right, and in my
wrapped up
opinion,
on
that
our
would be
appeals.
something that would be used infrequently. I mean, and that's something where the guidelines would have to be drawn up too, you know, in terms of, well, what would that require? A majority board vote? How stringent of standards would you be looking at? Like, it's a much bigger discussion because it would change how your ability to hear evidence at a regular appeal hearing. That's a big deal that the juice may not be worth the squeeze there. It might not happen that often.
Yeah, no, and exactly right. So that's super helpful. And thank you, board members, for at least showing where the interest was or not. I mean, this is where we rely on our hearing officer and staff, that if there are gaps or if there are things that are not allowing for people to get their due process rights, we should update our regulations. So let's hit pause on that for a moment. And I see you in the queue, Member Dreyer. Let's go ahead and hit pause on that, and we'll just go ahead and focus on our de novo. So Member Dreyer, you're in the queue.
So maybe I don't understand what the problem here is, but I remember at maybe at the last meeting, there was a discussion of a landlord says that she or he is providing a stove, and the tenant says they're not providing a stove. And that didn't show, and the hearing officer didn't do anything to find out if that was true or not. Are we talking about whether we have the right to ask the hearing officer to go find out more information, or is that?
No.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and let Stacy answer that since she's
Okay.
nodding her head.
No, Member Dreyer. So this what I'm talking about, which, you know, isn't actually part of the resolution today, so I want to keep it brief, is that if a party were to come to you and say, look, at the time of my hearing, all the due diligence in the world could not have given me this evidence to provide at the hearing, so I want to provide it now. But it has nothing to do with the board's ability to ask the hearing officer any further question. Right now, as far as I know, there's no jurisdiction that allows that. I mean, the appeal record is what it is. And appellate bodies in general, appellate courts, they make their determination based on the record that was made during the hearing and nothing else. That's how appellate law functions in general.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and return back then to the resolution at hand. This is the resolution of the Pasadena Rental Housing Board amending the Pasadena Rental Housing Board Regulations, Chapter 6, hearing procedures regarding postponements, time waivers, the valuation guidelines, and de novo appeals. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Excellent. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Board Member Bell?
Yes.
Board Member Comer is absent. Board Member Dunlop?
Yes.
Board Member Farmer?
Yes.
Board Member Going?
Yes.
Board Member Jackish?
Yes.
Board Member Meserobian?
Aye.
Board Member Naheda?
I have a question, sorry. Because on the presentation, we had 3 options for the de novo hearings. Which one did we settle on in the resolution? No, yes, or having them?
Well, if the choices for like which option, it was option 1, but this is should the body vote to do a de novo hearing. We don't have any regulations in place for should we be the only body in Southern California in the last 70 years to do a de novo hearing under rent control.
Sorry, Stacy, can you put the options back on the screen?
Yeah, so basically, option 1 would be to, let me see. Okay, so option 1 was, so let me clarify, first of all. Right now, your regulations do give you already the option to do a de novo hearing instead of a board appeal hearing, excuse me. But what they don't include is any guidelines or standards for when you should or could choose that option. So what I came to the board with at the last meeting was in option 1, which is what the resolution is based on. Option 1 includes language in your regulations that's basically the same as the language from City of Santa Monica and the City of West Hollywood. that says the board may conduct a de novo hearing upon a finding of egregious circumstances requiring a de novo hearing to rectify a manifest injustice. So then the next part of that is that the board would need to make a majority vote that they're finding that you guys are finding the egregious circumstances that are required to have a de novo hearing because you believe that there was some sort of manifest injustice that happened at the original hearing. The point that I made about how this has never happened in these jurisdictions is that that's a really high standard, you know, to find egregious circumstances and manifest injustice. And we'd hope that, you know, any hearing officer worth their salt would never be in this circumstance. But at least it gives you some sort of framework other than just you and the public, right? Gives some sort of framework as to when this could or should happen. So, and it again mirrors our neighboring rent stabilization jurisdictions. So option one included that egregious circumstance language, but it also included this other part, which is the due process part. Because right now your regulations don't say that even if you found that you want to do a de novo hearing right now by a majority vote, already says that, there's nothing saying that parties then have a right to gather their case, right? To like go and have a notice for this de novo hearing. Theoretically, you could have it that next second as soon as you took the vote, you know? So that flies in the face of what I believe is basic due process rights. And, you know, if somebody's going to have a whole new hearing, they should have the right to prepare for that and have at least the minimum 14-day hearing notice that's afforded to parties for regular petition hearings. So option one is both of those pieces together, giving the egregious circumstances language as well as the due process notice. And that's what's in the resolution before you today.
Okay, just want to make sure, because that's not three options. I don't know which one we agreed on, what was included in the resolution. So yes.
And let me just consult with the attorney here. Do we need to withdraw the motion since we were mid-vote? All right. All right. Can we withdraw the motion and we'll just start? No?
Isn't it?
Ms. Robian?
But isn't there a resolution?
Yes.
The resolution is very clear that it refers to attachment, whatever. Like, there's no ambiguity.
The attorney thinks it would be cleaner, which is good enough for me, to be honest. So can we go ahead and, remember, Ms. Rubin, would you?
Sure, withdraw and reintroduce a
Thank
new
you,
motion
thank
with
you.
what the attorney thinks is the best way to protect us. Option one, with all the red line items included.
I second that.
Friendly amendment. Option one also includes the language about introducing new evidence, which is why it's confusing to say option one, because the resolution does not go forward with that. So if we're going to do this whole option one thing, I think we need to explicitly exclude the language that's written into option one in the staff report that says that we're going to have this piece about introducing new evidence.
Because you're right. It's
On
'cause
page
that's-
6 of 8, yeah.
Yeah, and because that's not.
I recommend you do a substitute motion.
Okay, I'll make a substitute motion to approve the staff recommendation for chapter 6, specifically that we're using option one in the staff report minus the bullet point that says similar to West Hollywood's requirement that allows new evidence to be introduced only when the appellant can show why new matter or evidence with due diligence could not have been produced at the prior hearing. We're excluding that part of option one.
Second.
Thank you, board members. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Board Member Bell?
Yes.
Board Member Coer is absent. Board Member Dunlop?
Yes.
Board Member Farmer?
Yes.
Board Member Goin?
Yes.
Board Member Jackish?
Yes.
Board Member Meserobian?
Aye.
Board Member Naheda?
Yes.
Board Member Wernberg?
Yes.
Chair Henry?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodriguez,
Aye.
and alternate board member Dreyer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, board members. Really appreciate clearing some of these with questions. No, it's okay. But I'm actually just really appreciative that we've cleaned up some of these regulations because, as Stacy indicated, they are about people's due process rights and just making sure we have all bases covered. But again, hopefully we will never, ever be doing a de novo hearing. All right. So with that, we've got another piece of old business returning to us. This is item 3. Consider recommendations for regulations for repairs and improvement of rental units to ensure the least amount of disruption for the tenant. And I believe we have a presentation on this.
Okay, good evening. And thank you, Chair, members of the board, Director Morales. My name is Stanko Zovko. I'm the program coordinator over our outreach and enforcement section here in the Rent Stabilization Department. And I have the pleasure of presenting to you item number 3, which is a request to consider recommendations for regulations for repair and improvements of rental units to ensure the least amount of disruption for tenants. This is the second time this item has come before the board for discussion and consideration. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to jump straight into the background. The charter grants authority and also directs the board to establish regulations regarding repairs and improvements to rental units, specifically to ensure the least amount of disruption for tenants. This direction in the charter appears in section 1806A6A under the section which identifies failure to give access to a unit as a just cause for eviction for a tenant. In addition to directing the board to create regulations that minimize tenant disruption, the charter also provides clear protections for tenants who may experience displacement due to repair work. In another section, section 1806A8 outlines a no-fault eviction process when work will render a rental unit uninhabitable for a period of at least 30 days. This section specifies the landlord's obligations and which includes offering the tenant the right of first refusal to relocate to a comparable or superior unit at the same rent, or providing full relocation assistance along with the right to return to the unit at the same rent once the work has been completed. Okay. So on May 21st, 2026, staff provided the board with an initial high-level overview to support discussion on developing regulations governing the repair and improvement of rental units. Staff also presented a summary of comparable habitability-related programs adopted by neighboring rent-stabilized jurisdictions, including the City of Los Angeles, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and Santa Monica. The board expressed general support for pursuing similar protection frameworks and requested the future presentations include a component-by-component comparison, outlining how each jurisdiction addresses some of the elements of their respective plans. The board further directed staff to return with an implementation recommendation that would be feasible given the department's resources, with particular attention to items such as per diem provisions and noticing requirements. So looking at the current requirements and protections in the charter, there really exists a gap where repair work displaces a tenant for less than 30 days. At present, there are no regulations or requirements or guidance for landlords regarding the obligations to tenants when a unit becomes uninhabitable due to repairs lasting fewer than 30 days. Additionally, there are no standards requiring landlords to make reasonable efforts to minimize disruption during that initial 30-day period or for any kind of longer-term project than 30 days, which does not result in the unit becoming uninhabitable. Currently, landlords are only required to engage with the department if they are planning a substantial and necessary repair that they know will render the unit uninhabitable for 30 days or more. If a landlord begins work that was not initially expected to exceed 30 days, but ultimately does exceed beyond that time frame, it is left up to a civil matter to enact the protections for the no-fault eviction between the tenant and the landlord. So in looking at the noticing requirements in some of the other jurisdictions, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, and West Hollywood, a lot of them are related to a time frame established prior to the start of work or when permits are issued. Los Angeles being the longest time frame for noticing requirements with 60 days from the date when the tenant is served all notices. Beverly Hills requires notice of construction to be posted at least 10 days prior to issuance of permit. And Santa Monica is within 5 days, and West Hollywood 10 days prior to the start of permitted construction. The applicant is required to serve each affected tenant. The noticing requirements are slightly different, but between these jurisdictions as well, with some requiring simply that a document be submitted to the department declaring under penalty of perjury that all tenants have been notified properly. Other ones requiring that being much more specific in the methods of delivery, requiring that each tenant be sent an email, provided an actual physical copy on their door, and that copies be posted on site as well. Some of these jurisdictions also request proof of service for this notification, but that is slightly inconsistent between them. So based upon some of the language that we discovered in these noticing requirements and some of these notices, staff has compiled the following noticing recommendations to recommend for a standardized form that landlords can use to notify their tenants about work being conducted and maybe some of the rules and regulations and protections they have within the context of that. So some of the noticing recommendations staff has put together for consideration by the board would be a detailed description of the nature and scope of the construction activity to be performed, information on the construction schedule, including dates and times when services such as laundry, parking, elevators, water, power will be unavailable, a statement confirming that construction will not terminate a tenant's tenancy, a statement informing tenants of their rights to request mitigation measures from the owner to reduce construction-related impacts, contact information for the owner, property manager, and a designated project manager responsible for addressing tenant inquiries, complaints, and or requests for mitigation. A statement advising tenants to immediately contact the city's planning department if they observe any conditions they believe are unsafe or in violation of city codes. A statement explaining that any work rendering a unit uninhabitable requires a landlord to either provide temporary relocation or pay per diem to the affected tenant. A statement noting that if a tenant's unit remains uninhabitable for 30 days or more without temporary relocation, the tenant is entitled to a full relocation payment and has the right to return to the unit at the same rent once repairs are completed. And then information outlining allowable construction hours in Pasadena, a statement regarding accommodations for pet fees, and that the notices be submitted to the Rent Stabilization Department. The other item for consideration that we're putting forward is a per diem, the recommendation that the board consider a per diem. Looking at the other jurisdictions that we have been comparing to, 2 of them have adopted per diem, specifically outlined for any tenant displaced for really any period of time from their unit. West Hollywood and Santa Monica have them both broken down by similar categories, outlining hotel amount, meal expenses, laundry, as well as pet accommodations and other. West Hollywood's is very interesting in that it outlines the per diem for the hotel amount for each bedroom occupied in the displaced household's unit. So although the hotel amount is $191 per diem, if they had two occupied bedrooms, it could be double that. Additionally, Santa Monica, their means and method plan that they use to regulate these types of repairs requires that their city council adopt an annual resolution establishing a per diem rate. Whereas Beverly Hills does outline that a city council may establish the per diem, but per our records, none has been established at this point. In addition to that, we've included the general per diem rates published by the government for LA County, establishing $191 as a daily per diem for hotel rooms and $64.50 for meals. So staff is putting forward 3 options for consideration by the board with board's input. Option number 1, implement a requirement that landlords provides a standardized notice to all affected tenants in a timely and accessible manner when habitability conditions arise. Option 2, implement a standardized notice requirements in option 1, as well as establish a per diem compensation for tenants who are temporarily displaced due to necessary repairs. Or option 3, direct staff to pursue an alternative course of action as determined by the board. Okay.
Thank you, Stanko.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and take questions first from board members, then we'll go to public comment. Member Dreyer, are you still in the queue? Okay. Member Bell?
Yeah, I just had one quick question on the per diem piece. In Beverly Hills and Los Angeles, where they don't have that, do you know, did you notice in their ordinances whether the tenants are paying rent during that time?
Yes, so under those jurisdictions, they continue to pay rent, and the landlord pays for the accommodations at hotels.
Well, no, I'm talking about the jurisdictions that don't pay for hotels, Beverly Hills and Los Angeles.
Well, Beverly Hills in particular, they doesn't say they don't pay, they just haven't established a per diem. What Beverly Hills says is it has to be within, I believe, 3 miles and within city limits of the unit, and they just have to find the accommodation. And if it doesn't have a kitchenette, then they have to pay for the meal.
So there's not a designated amount, but the landlord still has to pay for a hotel?
Yes.
Do you know about Los Angeles?
Los Angeles is the same.
Okay, so they still do have to pay for
Yes.
a room somewhere?
And the tenant continues to pay the rent.
Yeah, Los Angeles does outline that the landlord and the tenant can come to an agreement on a per diem amount, but it does not specify what that requirement is.
Got you, okay. But at the very minimum, they're asked to provide for the tenant's accommodation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And in Los Angeles, through the means and method plan, the THP plan, a tenant can go forward and go to appeals hearing or a hearing objecting to it and then request more for whatever reason that may be.
THP being?
Tenant habitability plan. Thank you.
Member Bill, any additional questions? Great, thank you. Member Goyne?
If we could go back to slide 11 for just a minute.
11. That would be, okay. This one?
Yes. Are these the reimbursement rates, or are these what hospital rooms on average actually cost in these jurisdictions?
So this is established by the U.S. government as kind of a standard for reimbursement, usually for employees having to travel to different jurisdictions, for government employees, federal employees, things like that. And it's typically a standard that's established that a lot of other places look to as what is the standard cost of like a hotel room in that area. And so I don't know if you noticed, but the West Hollywood per diem is actually tied to this per diem.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, Member Goyne? No? All right. Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you for that information. First question is, regardless of what we vote on, it sounds like, there's implementation and kind of fleshing things out. Would this still come back to us as a board to kind of get those fine details out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is kind of maybe a first toss at what are the major items that the board wants to address in this plan, and then implementing it is going to be likely a multi-part process. The board could implement initially a requirement that landlords provide some type of notice on site or something to that nature. But, if the board wanted to one day implement more strict regulations or like an appeals process for this, that would require additional discussion and consideration and breakdown by topic.
Okay, cool.
So we
Perfect.
would come back with a separate regulation. That would be
Yeah.
the next step. And
Okay,
so that
great.
regulation, we'll get the feedback from you today and then come back with the regulation. But as Stanko provided, that there could be additional things that you may in the
Yeah,
future.
that makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, like, this is just kind of like a starting off point of where we'd like to go with this.
Yeah.
Uh,
And one thing that wasn't included in this report, but maybe of note, is the city of Pasadena had established a per diem previously as part of the tenant protection ordinance that has been supplanted by the charter. But it is not, the city has in the past established a per diem for people who've been displaced.
Got you.
Stanko, do you remember that amount, the per diem amount?
If I remember off the top of my head, don't quote me, but I think it was 2 times the daily rent. So.
Yeah, and one last comment. I wanted to I do like option 2. I do like and thank you for kind of circling back to per diem, just because I know that construction can be very unpredictable. Yeah, I see per diem as kind of like a logical, I'm sure homeowners don't want construction to go on for so long because it could be so expensive and disrupted for themselves, but just for the tenant's sake, per day, and hopefully that incentivizes homeowners to complete construction, hopefully ahead of schedule, so that they don't have to keep paying that per diem. But for me, per diem seems appropriate because construction can go on. There's issues that come up, and yeah, having to pay each day that person is out of their home, and then that person is still paying rent. I like that clarification too. Seems like the best option in my opinion.
Thank you. Member Dreyer?
Sorry.
I'm as Member Dreyer as well. This is Member Jagish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we've got 2 Member Dryers?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
But you go ahead.
Brace yourself, everyone. Okay, so maybe we need one of the monitors corrected. Okay, so member, will the real Member Dryer stand up? Was it Member?
How many people remember that TV show that we thought
I
you
don't want to know. Sorry, Member Jagish, was it you in the queue or were both of you in the
I
queue?
don't remember. Go ahead.
Okay.
This is Member Jagish. I definitely was in the queue.
Okay.
But were you? No.
I'm here.
Okay. I
No,
think
all right,
that's
we'll go
me.
ahead and go with Member Jagish.
Okay, thank you. So I'm getting confused. Is this specifically for construction that's going to be less than 30 days? That's the time frame that's
So,
missing something?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I can clarify that. Currently, the way that the charter is written, it essentially almost automatically requires a tenant to be paid relocation if their unit is made uninhabitable for a period of 30 days or longer. So, and they're also in that instance supposed to be offered either the right of first refusal to a comparable or superior unit at the same rent by the landlord, and if the landlord is unable to do that, then they are paid the relocation with the right to return to that unit once the repairs are completed. So currently the way it sits, and we have run into this a few times with tenants reaching out to us, is there's kind of this no man's land of this less than 30-day repair window where tenants may have been displaced for like a week or so, and they'll oftentimes call us asking us, are there any protections or guidance on that? How much is fair? And we don't have anything for that. Once it hits that 30-day mark, then the charter comes into play. But oftentimes, very, very rarely is a landlord, I think we've only had it one time where they've even reached out to us knowing that a tenant was going to be displaced for 30 days or more. Typically, the situations that we have seen, most owners are contemplating a period of work less than 30 days for a lot of reasons. The quicker the better. But where we have a little bit of issues is that's kind of a murky time frame. We don't have any protections to that. And then once it does hit 30 days, it's typically left up to like the landlord and the tenant to resolve the issue regarding the no fault eviction.
This is Member Jagish. Thank you so much for clarifying that. My point is about the noticing time frame. When we, in option one, and maybe this is for later, I'm not sure, but where it says standardized notice in timely and accessible manner, as an accessibility thing, some of these other cities have 10 days, and frankly, that's not accessible for people to be able to find some place else to live, especially if you have certain accessible things that you need, because accessible housing is not in great supply. So I think when we go to think more deeply about option one, specifically around the noticing and the timeliness, I mean, Los Angeles has 60 days. That sounds great, but I think even 30 days would be better for people to be able to find a place to live if they can't be, even if it's only a week that they're out of their home.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Member Jagish?
No, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Member Mastrobian? Member Dreyer?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I don't get too far in the weeds here, but what Member Jagish just said sort of struck a chord. So these items about the cost of hotels and meals, you said they're from, I don't know which department of the federal government, but do they get updated so that we don't have to calculate our own inflation rates?
Yes, they get updated, and it
Okay.
might be something similar that we write into the regulation that pursuant to, as we do the CPI index,
Yeah, okay.
we would do the same for Los Angeles area.
Okay. The other thing is the hotel number said without taxes, which means it doesn't pay the transient occupancy tax, which is a big chunk for a lot of people. So I don't know why that's not in there as a cost of relocation. And secondly, again, this is in the weeds, but I think the real people are going to worry about this. If a tenant has parking on the space and then they go to a hotel and they have to pay $60 a day for parking, that's another expense that isn't covered in this. So I'm just curious if we could amend this to look at the real costs rather than just the posted cost of a hotel per night.
So one of the reasons why some jurisdictions, for example, like Beverly Hills, doesn't include the per diem is because they say you have to pay for the accommodation, period. And if that means you're being charged a $50 PEP fee, because that's what the hotel requires, and the TOT cost would then be covered as well. So that can be a consideration, that we say hotel costs within a certain miles of, of their home or something like that in the area.
Okay, and so the final point I wanted to make is, so the tenant, let's say the rent is $2,000 a month, which is roughly 60 something a day. Okay. So the landlord is paying a lot more than $60 a day. So there should be an incentive for the landlord to make this happen quickly. But what we heard from some landlords before is, it's not always predictable how long it's going to take. So when does the 30-day notice get triggered? Let's say they think it's going to take 20 days to fix the roof. Usually if you fix the roof, you don't have to relocate people, but whatever the repairs are, where they have to ask people to leave, they say this will be over in 20 days. So what happens if it takes more than 20 days? It takes 35 days. Is there some point at which the tenant and the landlord have to agree on continuing this, or what?
So I think that we could amend our regulations, because currently, I think that was Stanko was saying earlier, is that there's a little bit of gap, right? We know that if it exceeds 30 days and the owner is required to, the owner can come in and say, okay, I'm gonna evict you pursuant to this charter that allows me to do that with relocation, allowing you the right to return to the unit at the same amount of rent and providing you with the relocation costs. And then that's what the household used to relocate temporarily that exceeds 30 days. But I think the gap is in between the time when, yes, they say it's 20, they're accommodating you for 20, and then you get to 30. And you get to 31, right? And then there's a problem, because really 30 or more days, then you are required to do the relocation fee. And so I think that's something we need to address if we're going to be moving in this direction.
So if a tenant is out of their apartment for more than 30 days, the relocation fee is supposed to kick in, even if the repairs will be done in 2 weeks from that period of time. Is that what you're saying? I don't quite understand.
That is what the charter says, because the charter says 30 plus days, then they are required to provide the relocation fee. So that would be the case.
That doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair to the landlord to have to pay relocation expenses if they're going to be done in another 15 days.
So a consideration that is maybe amicable between the parties is let them work out the agreement. And let the parties say, okay, well, yeah, it's going to be another week, but it's just another week. We're in day 31 already starting, but there's still 7 more days to go. But the tenant and the landlord agree, I'm going to continue to pay for your hotel during that period of time, and you can just move back because the property will be ready. And so that could be a consideration that we might consider, let the parties work out their own agreement and come to some resolve.
But let me that's going to require a lot of bureaucratic staff work to make sure that they're both negotiating with each other in good faith, and they probably have to sign something that says we agree with this, as opposed to, there's an eviction where they go to housing court and they say, we want you out of here, and it's not a just cause eviction, so they come to us, or they hire a lawyer. This seems like most landlords are going to be in good faith. They're going to say, look, I want to get the plumbing done, but I can't get a plumber to come, right? It just seems kind of overreached for us to be telling the landlord you have to pay whatever it is, $20,000 in moving expenses for another 15 days of getting the plumbing fixed.
And these are things that we can work out through the process. We can put it in the regulation, because I think that's one thing that Stanko is bringing forward, is saying there's the gaps. These are the gaps that we need to work through. One thing is having a notice at the inception. If this exceeds 30 days, understand the parties have the right to X, Y, and Z, and have a form that they submit that to the department and they continue. The parties usually can work out their own agreements on their own.
Okay. All right, thanks. That's helpful.
Thank you. Member Ms. Robien?
First of all, how are we determining habitability for relocation? And then this relocation amount that we're giving, or not relocation, but the per diem amount, is that, I'm not understanding exactly, are we paying, is the landlord paying the hotel, or is given a credit, or is the tenant paying and getting reimbursed? Are we going to be defining all of that, or is that just going to be negotiated between them?
Yeah, so usually the requirement is that the tenants continue to pay rent. And then the landlords will take that accommodation. And usually, believe it or not, the landlords will come in and pay that fee. And my experience has been that landlords have been very judicious in this area. They're concerned for tenants being in a unit that's not habitable. I had a few ceilings fall in when we had heavy rains, and those landlords had no problem with relocating those people right away because, and getting their means of method plan approved and all that stuff, because they didn't want the tenant to be harmed. And I think that's mainly what we see in these cases, is that, and then the tenants work out an agreement. You know, sometimes they'll say, okay, well, maybe I'm gonna stay with mom and dad, and I'm just gonna get the per diem for the costs or whatever it is. So those are all considerations for the board to make.
Actually, can I just ask, how do the tenants know their rights under having an agreement with the landlord?
Well, we would have to, again, it would be through regulation. We would put media out there. We would inform, educate, just as we've done with everything else that we do.
So a landlord submits a statement that they're gonna have to
Sorry,
relocate.
Member Dryer, just point of
Okay.
order.
Okay.
Member Ms. Robian was, but if it's okay for
Sure.
the tag
Keep
team
the
or not, but I
conversation
just,
going.
yeah, but I just want to like.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But your question was how, like, and are you asking about the affected
Well,
tenant
I'm-
or just like?
Yeah, if
tenants?
so a landlord comes in and says, I'm gonna have to do repairs. I'm gonna ask the tenant to leave for 30 days. I'm gonna find them a hotel. Or they're gonna find a hotel and I'm gonna reimburse them, whatever we decide. And then the 30 days are up and you're saying that the tenant and the landlord have to negotiate. When do we tell the tenant what rights they have under, and how do we tell the tenant what rights they have under this?
It would be all spelled out in the form,
It would be on
the notice. In the notice, it would all be spelled out. And we do that already in some of our, our buyout agreements, for example. That shows the relocation amounts, and it shows people their rights and tells them they have, 45 days to rescind the buyout agreement.
Correct.
All that would be put in the notice.
And also with the notice works if we have prior knowledge that that work is going to be done. There's a lot of situations where plumbing goes out, landlord sends somebody in, they start working on it. And I mean, I've been in this experience multiple times myself, and through seeing it or experiencing it, is the work starts and there's always going to be more problems come up, and they're not necessarily going and getting permits, which is triggering a notice to be given, so the tenant doesn't know. And so there is a lot of like unknown, and of course, media to inform people of their rights can be one of the methods of doing this. What we're discussing right now, and I've seen comments from the public about this, saying that we're going to be setting new requirements for permitting and such, which we're not. All we're doing is when there is a permit, and we're going to put a notice to the tenants that they have their rights, and there's X number of days. And I also agree with Member Jagush that it needs to be at least 30 days. 10 days is just unreasonable for somebody to find a place. And in regard to staying with a friend or mom and dad, so that becomes something that if we start regulating the amount, I think that should still be the same amount. And I know with the HUD, and we talked about with what you mentioned with Pasadena with 2 times. I think the HUD standard is 2 times and you don't pay rent. So so that might be some kind of basis that we could have. And then we have this, like a 2-bedroom is $3,100 approximately, so it's about $100 a day. So it comes roughly around $300, just flatline, and we don't have to think too much about what the hotel costs is, and the HUD is adjusted annually with what it is, and we might be able to use that as a standard. Then we don't have to worry about hotel meals, everything else. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Member Ms. Robian. Member Wernberg.
Thank you. I don't think that this should be looked at, the rates, as an incentive for landlords to get the work done because they want to get the work done as quickly as possible. I don't think that the per diem rate should be used as a tool to punish them. I also, just a point of information with the GSA rates, I worked for a government contractor and had to deal with those. GSA rates are given to government employees and government contractors. So you actually have to have an ID or special code to get that rate. So I don't think we should use that. It's not really practical for the general public. It's also, I found, generally under the amount. And when you work for a government contractor, they can bill that. They're limited on what they can bill back to the contract. So they can only bill that much to the contract, but generally they pay more for the hotel, even though that's the rate that they can sometimes get, and it's also not consistently offered. So I would just say I don't think the GSA is an appropriate rate to use, and they don't update it that often. They also determine mileage reimbursement that way. When the fuel prices go through the roof, stays the same. When they go down, stays the same. So that's just my 2 cents on that from my personal experience. Per diems in general, I also don't feel like that's a great, I think it's a lot of extra legwork that we're gonna have to do. I think the way the other cities do it, where the landlord pays it wholesale, figures out a solution, I think that's a better idea. I think it'll take less time, especially if we have to approve these periodically or have a process in place to approve them. It's gonna take more time and energy. I definitely do think that displaced tenants absolutely should be taken care of. And also, especially if they have special considerations, accessibility, children, things like that. I did want to say that letting the advance notice is very important, but it's very difficult. Contractors, especially if it's a large planned project, contractors start a new project when their old one finishes. So if the old one goes over, they're not going to start on time on your project. If there's an emergency situation, also there's not the opportunity for as much notice. I worked in property management a long time ago. We had an eviction on the 2nd floor. They left their bathroom running as a screw you, and the person below them, their ceiling fell in. So we obviously don't have time. So there are situations that you can't plan for, sewer pipes breaking underneath the property, things like that. So I think there needs to maybe be different criteria for emergency situations versus planned larger projects. I also feel like this disproportionately affects smaller landlords. This is kind of the drum that I keep beating, but I feel like there needs to be a carve out for smaller volume landlords. The rental stock in Pasadena includes a lot of small duplexes, triplexes, single family homes. People that manage those or own those don't have a dedicated property manager that they can put down as the contact. The administrative burden of filling out the habitability plans and getting all of this information. I do think notice should be given to the tenants, obviously, but on the other side of having it very comprehensive, having it on file with the RSD, getting approval from the RSD before any of these things can happen is a lot to put on somebody who maybe this isn't their primary job and they don't have dedicated employees to do this. But somebody, large corporations have staff to handle this and dedicated people that do this all the time. So that's something that I would like you to take into consideration. I also wonder what how widespread is this issue that we're putting a lot of focus on it. I do think there needs to be some guidelines in place, but as far as the enforcement and the involvement of the department, if it's actually if we aren't getting a lot of complaints on this, I don't know that we need to be having so much involvement in every single aspect of it. If it could be, instead of if somebody has an issue and their landlord didn't follow the rules, then the department can get involved versus having the department involved in every single step of the process. And I realize we're just talking about regulations now and the enforcement could be different, but that's just my opinion on that side, especially since we do have a lot of other pressing issues. Again, I'm always about analytics and data. How big of a problem is this, and how much time and energy and staff time do we want to have committed to this if it's, if we're taking on this administrative burden, but it's actually not a huge concern in the city currently. And then again, Bruges mentioned this, I believe, but minimally disruptive, things like that, we really need to define that so that, I know we're trying to create less ambiguity here, but I think if we leave terminology like that in there, it's going to create more ambiguity and more opportunities for misunderstandings and potentially more complaints, hearings, things of that nature, that are gonna take up more time and energy again. So just, I want, whatever we do to be very clear and very specific.
Thank you. And I think that, I mean, this is something we do have to do according to the charter.
So the charter says that the board shall create
So,
regulations.
If you look at the
promulgate
top of page
regulations.
2 on the agenda report, it's quoting from the charter. So it's a shall, not may. Not optional versus optional. But thank you for lifting all the points, because you actually, like all of you have so far, you've actually brought a lot of questions or notes or points that haven't been in the staff report yet. Any additional points for information? Thank you, Member Wernberg. Member Dunlap.
So I just want a clarification on this. I got stuck. Okay, just a clarification. What we are considering here is regulations regarding habitability for tenants whose units are being worked on. Does this in any way expand to be inclusive of the units that are not being worked on, but that habitability has become an issue around them due to external construction? Because naturally, they're not displaced, there's not gonna be any requirement for per diems, but there can be a lot of damage, a lot of difficulty dealing with the construction that's going on. So is this gonna be strictly for, providing protections to tenants for potential displacement in their unit versus just habitability?
So the charter article says that the board shall promulgate regulations for the repair and improvement of rental units to ensure the least amount of disruption for tenants.
Okay, so if there is building going on in proximity to you, like 10 feet away from you, this is not that issue. This is strictly for your unit being worked on in some way. That's what we're limited to. I just want to make sure that.
Yes, so this is under the section for evictions based on a failure by a tenant to allow entry, reasonable entry, legitimate entry. And so this is a carve out to that provides protections for those tenants. So it's specific to that unit where a landlord does need to enter for some reason. There are separately sometimes ordinances cities adopt for things like noise. And that sort of thing. This would be separate.
Okay, wanted that clarification. Thank you so much.
Is that it, Member Dunlap?
That's it.
Okay. Member Farmer.
I'm struggling with a little understanding with this. If a landlord is going to do work in a unit that's going to require the tenant to be relocated, I get the amount that they will pay for their accommodations. Now, where I'm a little lost is, what if my belongings, my furniture, and all that needs to go over to a storage unit? And this is the result of their event. What if my dog is not the little bitty pocket dog, which she is not, and now, where am I gonna go with my dog? Then the other thing is, in the city of Pasadena, where are people going to go, within what radius? Because our wildfire victims are in those places. So now I'm driving who knows where to stay somewhere. my belongings are stored somewhere else, and my job is who knows where. So that's what I'm struggling with. I'm not seeing the dots coming together on the whole idea, because I'm paying my rent, but you're reimbursing me X amount, but I gotta pay for those things to go in storage. And then I have the dog, then I'm staying way out there and my gas is more. So that's where I am. A little confused. I mean, not confused, but I just don't see the dots connecting.
So that's why we're here to get more information from you. So that's something we can consider and bring back, that is what you want to look at. Other jurisdictions do an all-inclusive. For example, you've got kids, they have to accept kids. If you've got a
Right.
dog, they have to accept dogs. If you have to move your items, they have to pay for that storage. So those are all things that most jurisdictions, like, for example, and I refer to Los Angeles because it's probably the longest standing THP program that's around, and they do provide for all that. So you look at the household and whatever that needs to be accommodated. And if it's an accessibility issue because you have a child who needs that, then obviously those are issues that you consider. You can only be a certain amount, a distance from the school that they're attending.
Right,
Things of that
right.
nature, so.
Okay, just don't want those things to be forgotten about in writing. Okay.
Thank you, Member Farmer. Member Goin?
So just to elaborate on what some of my colleagues have been saying, been saying, I've heard from landlords that some of them are pretty concerned that the requirement for a schedule of work, if applied overzealously, could be used to penalize them for things that they really have no control over, delays in the work. In my own case, the complex I live in was recently re-roofed, and when the roofers got up there and tore up the shingles, they discovered that a couple of the buildings needed structural repairs. So that added a few days, and we were at all points of this, we were properly notified, but obviously, when they discovered that more time was going to be needed, they didn't stop the work to give us another 5 days of notification. And then another thing, and this sort of, we've been talking a lot in recent meetings about working with other city departments. For several days after the roofers were gone, the ladders were still up there, and I asked the landlord, was he aware that they left the ladders? And he said that the city actually requires, when a building's been re-roofed, the roofers have to leave the ladders attached to the building until a city inspector can come out to inspect the roof. And for whatever reason, it took the city a few days to get out there and look at that roof. So that was, if you're superstitious, that was a few more days of having to walk under ladders to get to your car. So I would urge that we understand that most of the time when there's a delay, that's not the landlord's fault or desire. That's, something came up. And then my second, it's really a question based on my life experience. I was living in the San Fernando Valley when the Northridge quake hit. So do we have or do we need any kind of act of God provisions for this? Because, if God forbid, another large earthquake hits, there's going to be a lot of repairs needed where there's not going to be any time to give notice. And, in my case, I was living in my semi-habitable apartment for a couple weeks while they repaired another one in the building. Then I moved to that one while they repaired mine. Then I moved back. And I think we should have, this is Southern California, we should have acknowledgments that we do have the occasional natural disaster.
Thank you, Member Goin, and I got a big chuckle out of your superstitious. I will admit to being the one that would be walking around the ladder, having that anxiety.
I do want to add something. So something that came to me is that we do have the petition process. And the petition process allows for a resident to go and request a reduction in services and rent, request reduction in rent as a result of reduction in services. So some of these can be taken through the petition process, but only rent stabilized units. So we're limited to rent stabilized units in this case, just to throw out another idea.
Okay. I want to thank the board members for coming up with questions and just considerations. And before we get to public comment, I just want to reiterate some of them that I heard that I thought would be very helpful. This idea of like an emergency repair versus a planned repair. The earthquake is a very good scenario. We've had several windstorms in this city that have blown over trees. I know on Los Robles, a neighbor of mine lost the front of their house when a big oak tree fell in. So I think there might be some value in that. Very appreciative to Member Jagish for lifting up the accessibility piece. I've experienced this with friends and have read about it in media. Even if you think you're booking an accessible room at a Hilton or the Lucky 7 or wherever you're staying, they don't always have those rooms available. I've traveled with wheelchair users who've not been able to utilize the room given to them. So I think there might be some room for that. I also appreciate the tension we have with noticing, right? So I'm wondering if there would, if staff could explore, in the same way we have a slight differentiation in the permanent relocation. If we've got a family with accessibility issues, should we be exploring a longer notice if possible, still understanding the emergency repairs versus planned repairs. That's always the big wrench in the work. Totally, 2 points that Member Wernberg made that really struck me. When I was in sales, when I had colleagues come to work with me in Pasadena, they could never stay in Pasadena because all the hotels were above the per diem limits, right? And that was a private company I worked for. So I think figuring out the reality of the cost of hotel rooms in Pasadena, maybe a per diem amount isn't the best way to go, but I was reflecting on that, like, it was just so expensive, and there's not really a break any time of the year for most of the hotel accommodations we have in the city. And there was one other one. Oh, the small landlord. So this is something I wrestle with in terms of what is the value add for small landlords with our department, and I'm wondering is some of the burdens and obstacles, Member Wernberg, that you pointed out, is that something the rent is like, can a landlord book an appointment with RSD staff and like go through this in a consultative way and a helpful way? Because if you're managing a small property, you should be able to avail of the professional services of the department to sort of maybe ease that burden or make it a little easier. That's just something that came to mind when you lifted that profile of folks. But I'm really happy to see all of the things that staff recommends that would be included in the notice, particularly things like how to reach out to the planning department or to make a complaint. We have had people come to this chamber talking about issues they've had with construction and maybe not realizing they could contact the city or what best ways to contact the city. As well as even just work hours, because we've also heard about that from folks who come. I see the queues filled up again, so those are just my thoughts and reflections on what we've heard. So we'll go ahead and go through the queue again, and then we'll go ahead and take public comment. And again, we're not voting on anything tonight, so this is really our opportunity to, as we've been continuing to do, lift concerns, flag things that maybe weren't in the report, or other considerations from other perspectives. So with that, Member Nahara, go ahead and go to you.
Thank you, Chair Henry. I'll be short because I usually am. Just couple things. Is there like a minimum days for the per diem to take in effect? Like, was it a 1 day? Like, if you're at a unit for 1 day, you qualify, or should we establish like a minimum 3 days and you'll get it?
So, Member Nahara, are you asking in the other jurisdictions, was there a minimum threshold to
Yes.
trigger the per diem? I don't believe so. I'd have to look through the regulations again, but I do also believe that, to some of the other conversation, I do believe the per diem was an option maybe in some jurisdictions, not a requirement. So if a landlord's able to provide accommodations otherwise, the per diem was an option though.
Oh,
for them.
okay. I just want to make sure, because I know sometimes, like a couple weeks ago in my apartment, they had to turn off the water for a couple of hours to do repairs.
Yeah, I think so. The threshold would be 1 day. Yeah, for typically like 1 day where the unit's inhabitable.
24 hours or
24 hours. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
not
like-
a
it's
few
all
hours. Yeah, yeah,
confusing. You can say 1 day and
yeah.
8 people have different meanings for it.
I think specifically Beverly Hills does say 1 day
1 day.
in their charter, in their ordinance.
Okay, just certain things to work out. Like I get it that the units should be habitable, but another thing that I know other public speakers have brought up, if the landlord wants to do a repair and sometimes tenants don't want to let the repairman in, how do we? Is there any incentives you could think of, or?
I mean,
that is something that a tenant can be evicted for. I just want to make that very clear. If a tenant wants to play hardball and not allow, and there's been demonstrated, attempts of good faith attempts on the part of the landlord, that's actually called out in our charter. If you don't let repair people,
Okay.
you're in breach of your lease. I mean, so amongst the other bad
Nobody
things
wants
that
to
could
get
happen.
wants people to get evicted, but I guess that's the nuclear option.
So
One
this
option.
this section actually comes from 1806. This comes from the eviction
Okay.
protection. So it actually is embedded in that area.
All right, so just make sure it's there. All right, yeah, because my only two concerns, like, when does it actually kick in, the threshold, and how, because I had neighbors who I just had bad neighbors before, and how landlords are trying to do the repairs, but their negligence caused it to be even longer and longer and longer. All right, thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you for lifting that. Member Bell?
Yeah, actually, I was for after. I've been holding because I thought this was just questions. So do you want me to go now, or I can wait till after? It's fine with me. Should I go now? Okay. So one is more of a clarifying question. So what you were saying, Director Morales, a second ago was that the downward adjustment process is only for RSO units, but this would apply to because it's under the just cause provisions, it applies to all units covered under just cause. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so maybe we could look at putting some specifics in that are not called out for, with a petition process or something. I don't know, we'd have to look at it and have our attorney review that and see if that's what we can do, because I know that's a body of tenants that we have issues with, and we can't very regulate reductions in rent.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah, thank you. So in a second, I'll just kind of affirm things I've heard from my colleagues. But I just sort of on a sort of 30,000 foot view. And again, one person's experience is not, comprehensive, but a lot in my experience, I did the math because I thought I was going to say this tonight, 32 years of renting since I was 24 years old. I've never had to leave my apartment for a major repair. Most repairs can be done with the tenants in the building. Roofs, windows, floors, bathroom fixtures, kitchen fixtures, most of that stuff. What I think, there are some though, right? And a lot of them are accidents, disasters, pipes break, as somebody has said, flooding, and that kind of thing. So it does happen, but I just kind of wanted to, because some of the public comments, not public comments, but written comments, made it sound like landlords were going to have to add these expenses on top of every little repair that they needed to make. And just to emphasize, this is only for something where it would be unsafe for the tenant to stay in the unit. we're going to take the windows off and we're not going to be able to put them back on for 3 days because of something or other, whatever. Well, that's not safe to stay in your apartment with no windows, so that makes sense. But windows, I've seen windows replaced in 20 minutes. You know, they pop them out, pop them back in. It's amazing. And so this isn't going to impact, you know, every single repair. Also, I want to acknowledge that I, in my line of work, see the worst cases. So I'm not trying to project this on everyone. I agree with others who have said that most landlords are going to want to take care of their tenants. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. But I've also seen cases, which I was reminded by Member Farmer's comments, that there was a problem with the ceiling, like some water leaking. The landlord needed to fix the ceiling and then found out there was asbestos throughout the ceiling. And they were going to have to clean all that asbestos out. But they were going to leave her furniture in the apartment and cover it with plastic. And, you know, she was like, no. And they wanted her to stay in the apartment too. So, I mean, this is an example of like, there's no way that's safe, right? It's not safe for the couch to stay there, her clothing, everything has to be removed to do that kind of work. So that's the kind of situation that I think we're seeing, and we do see it. We had a case, you know, a couple years ago, and sometimes it's a financial decision that the landlord does not want to have to relocate everyone. And so they put like holes through all the units to string new wiring while the tenants were living there. So those things are unsafe. So that leads me to one of my other comments, which is and maybe this is part of the future TPA conversation, if the tenant isn't offered this like certain number of days of hotel accommodation, let's say a week or 2 weeks or whatever, can the tenant initiate that to say, I don't feel safe living here? You know, there's, you know, arc welding happening in my unit and my kids are running around and this doesn't feel safe to me. Can the tenant initiate that process? And then I'll just, I agree with the 30-day comments and the storage, you know, and pets and all that needs to be thought through. The per occupied room, I think, is important. A lot of people, due to the cost of housing, have roommates, and roommates aren't known to sleep in the same bed usually. So, you know, a separate room for a roommate is important. So that's something to think about. It's not just families. Sometimes it's unrelated people living in the same unit. And then the final thing I'll say is about the timing of the payments. So if we have a per diem, then that's going to be a payment from the landlord to the tenant. Maybe it is better to have the landlord just pay the hotel directly. That's an option. But under the TPO, we often saw cases where the tenant just never saw the money.
Can you just spell out?
The Tenant Protection Ordinance, which was an ordinance, I think, in 2017 or 18, where the city council passed before we had any eviction protections, there were investors buying buildings and just evicting everyone, like 10s and 20s units of people all at once. And there was nothing we could do to stop them. And so the city council passed a law that said if the tenant is in that situation, the landlord has to at least pay some relocation assistance. It wasn't very much. And there was no enforcement mechanism. And so it relied on the landlord just being like, you know, here's $4,000 or something. And people were like, what do I do if I can't get it? And there was no answer to that. So I think if it is going to be a transfer of funds from the landlord to the tenant, that should happen before the tenant relocates, just to make sure that doesn't happen. That's all. Thank you.
Member Winberg?
Yeah, just one more thing on the per diem. I really think, again, it would be better to leave it open instead of dictating a specific amount, especially with Pasadena. We have, you know, FIFA, Olympics, Rose Parade, other football games where hotels fill up. Surge pricing is huge now, where they just increase the rate based on demand. So again, I think that it shouldn't be a definitive set amount. I think we should have it be fluid and not a specific set amount.
Thank you, Member Winberg. Member Dunlap?
See if it works. It does. Just a emphasis, because it came up when we were talking about one of the things will be contacts for the planning department, the building department. Just be, I don't know what we can do about it, but if something happens and we ran into a situation where the entire construction crews showed up the day after Thanksgiving, which is a specified holiday in the city, they refused to believe us. It was on the permit. It said it. They're like, no way. There's no way to reach anybody. What can a tenant do? Because now you're going to wait 3 days. They're going to come back. They came on Sundays. There has to be some access that we can call somebody and say, you got to come tell them to leave, type of thing. So I just like to strengthen that relationship a little bit with building and planning to, if we put these kind of regulations in and tell people that they should contact the planning department, they need to be able to access them. Okay, thank you.
Member Farmer?
Real quick, the roommate situation. A lot of times people will sublet a room without the landlord knowing that they have the extra tenant in there. And if you end up with a big fix-it situation, now you have the leasee being relocated, but now it's not covering it. It's not covering the let person. So that's just another situation that could happen. A lot of people are renting rooms and, subletting. Anyway, that's my thought. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we'll go ahead and go to public comment because our public's been waiting patiently. Thank all the members for everything you've shared. There may be some additional thoughts or reactions after public comment, but let's go ahead and go to public comment. So this is item 3, consider recommendations for regulations for repairs and improvements of rental units to ensure the least amount of disruption for the tenant.
Okay. The Rent Stabilization Department did receive public comments on this item. It was distributed to the board and posted online. We have 5 public comments, 1 on Zoom. The first one is Simon Gibbons.
Thank you. Pasadena has an older housing stock. It's in need of constant repair and maintenance, and it's one of the more expensive but important jobs that owners do. It's really important to make sure we don't make it so difficult to carry out that work that it gets delayed or put off or just not done at all. I think I understood correctly, Board Member Nahara talked about how important it is that work goes ahead so that everybody benefits, so that every tenant lives in a safe and comfortable place. And the more that we overregulate, the more difficult it becomes to carry out that work in a timely manner. So when I look at some of the proposals in the very lengthy document that was supplied, some of those are very alarming. For instance, producing a date and time-based analysis of what might happen is going to work for about the first 3 hours of the project. At that point, real life kicks in. Several of us, I think, have been involved in major projects. A spectacular one for me was a few years back, we decided to relay the driveway. And it's hard to believe in the current climate, but it got to nearly freezing overnight, and the asphalt wouldn't set. And we waited to the next day so we could finally put some parking lines down, and it wouldn't set. And on about day 4, after everybody had been traipsing through the asphalt, we all had filthy feet, we finally managed to get a parking lot that did the job. I had the fun and games of trying to get the city overnight parking permits for everybody, and I never want to do that again. It's a horrible system. So although I understand the intention to give people the maximum understanding and knowledge of what's coming their way, real life doesn't always work that way. And it's worth emphasizing that every homeowner faces this kind of problem as well. It's not unique to tenants. These works are inconvenient. They're no fun at all for anybody. And sadly, inconvenience is a part of living in these beautiful but older houses that we've got. The oldest one on my property line dates to about 1915, and it's gorgeous, but my word, it takes some looking after. But then beyond that, I'm concerned about some of the details. I'd like to, I'm afraid, respectfully disagree with a couple of the members. I'm concerned that the rent department has proposed getting involved in the permitting process, and that appears on page 109 of your agenda pack, a conversation about what will be involved in that. I'd also like to respectfully disagree with, I believe it was Member Bell, who was talking about the way that relocation could possibly be set up. That is specified on page 108 of your pack, the possibility of the city determining who gets relocated and who doesn't. The fear is this turns into a rapidly increasing requirement.
Thank you. That
for hundreds of
concludes your
dollars.
time.
Thank you.
Next is Dr. Gary Hampton Mothotep.
I'm criticizing, these are rules and regulations that's being enacted, and I'm criticizing them. I'm getting it straight. I'm making a record here for what may happen if I'm getting arrested. I'm criticizing the rules and regulations. I'm making analogies and comparisons, which I'm able to do. I'm able to do that, okay? That's what everybody else is doing in the audience and what you guys have been doing. I'm criticizing. You don't like the things that I'm saying, but I'm able to say those things, okay? Like the COVID is bad rules. That's why I was making the analogy on that COVID. Dr. Fauci was a bad person. He's a government person. We have bad government people here. That's the connection. I'm talking to your attorneys, okay? When I get arrested, whatever rules you make, it's going to get worse for you guys if you try to silence me.
Sir, we want to bring you back to the regulations for
talking about rules
repairs
and
and improvements of rental units to ensure the least amount of disruption for the tenant.
Okay, I'm
Thank you.
going to criticize right here. Here's the criticism coming up. This is criticism.
Item 3, Helen's continued proposals should make you sick to your stomach and go broke in your brain with more and more and more and more proposed new rules and regulations. By arguing and advocating against these additional new rules and regulations, and by voting no on these proposed new rules and regulations, you will send a resounding signal to Executive Director Helen Morales to stop pushing forward with aggressive, unnecessary, confusing and hostile, and increasingly expensive to the citizens of Pasadena. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Those 9 words should scare the hell out of any common sense American citizen. Helen is the traitorous, dangerous, and deceitful Karen Bass of Pasadena. The demon is in control of this Pasadena Rental Housing Board. I have always lived by President John F. Kennedy's motto, ask not, what can your country do for you? Ask, what can you do for your country? Helen's continued proposals should make you sick to your stomach and go broke in your brain with more and more and more and more proposed new rules and regulations. By arguing and advocating against these additional new rules and regulations, and by voting no on these proposed new rules and regulations, you will send a resounding signal to Executive Director Helen Morales to stop pushing forward with aggressive, unnecessary, confusing and hostile, and increasingly expensive to the citizens of Pasadena. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Those 9 words should scare the hell out of any common sense American citizen. Helen.
Criticizing about rules and regulations. I can say that, Allison Henry. I'm criticizing all the excessive rules and regulations, the bureaucracy. I'm making connections. That's what I do. I'm a writer. I'm very creative in a lot of damn ways. So don't try. I can say this. Shut up. I can tell you to shut up because I'm saying this. I'm on topic because I'm criticizing you. You don't like it.
Thank
You're
you.
gonna
That
get more of
concludes your
that
time.
open
Next
comment.
speaker is Jesus Rojas.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jesus Rojas. I come from the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. AGLA strongly opposes the staff proposal regarding establishing a per diem and pet fees as well as a notice requirement for repairs and improvements lasting less than 30 days. As it goes for beyond voter-approved valid measures created in the Pasadena Fair and Equitable Housing Charter, and it will undoubtedly subject the board and city to substantial litigation. As the Rent Stabilization Department's report clearly states, the charter only allows for setting fees for substantial remodels lasting 30 or more days as no-fault evictions, as stated under Section 1806.8. It is clear on its face that the charter does not contain any language granting authority to rental housing board for repairs and improvements lasting less than 30 days, especially any new fees. The notice provisions are equally unauthorized and are extremely aggressive. For example, the fact that a repair runs a few days over the initial anticipated 30-day period is overly harsh against the renters as well as the owners. It would force the owners to evict the renter and pay a full relocation payment. Who does this benefit? It would also be unlawful force double payment, as the first 30 days had already been paid for by owner based on the new fees. We strongly urge the board not to take any further action on this proposal until it obtains a formal legal opinion from the Pasadena City Attorney as to whether it violates an existing charter. Thank you.
Okay, next is Deborah Lutz.
I just wanted to mention that this hyper-regulations for these processes are completely disconnected from practical reality. I really fear that this proposal serves as a primarily to feed the RSD machine, in creating a self-justifying reason to expand the budget and hire additional staff. You are trying to enforce rules on building management. We don't live in some kind of idealistic utopia where everything goes according to plan. It's not sunshine and rainbows every single day. As functioning adults, we all have to navigate delays, unexpected frustrations, and minor inconveniences that are beyond our control. Yes, having to get a hotel room in neighboring Arcadia or Alhambra is a slight inconvenience, but not out of the realm of possibilities, and it's not going to derail somebody's life. The idea of having to compensate for an illegal sublet to be relocated is somewhat off-putting to anybody who follows a rental agreement. I do think that there should be some consideration in how you are going to ask a landlord to compensate for a per diem at a hotel or something, because I will not put my credit card down on a hotel room for a friend or a board member or a tenant. I don't know what they're going to do in that hotel room. So take all these things into consideration, have some loose rules, and create a space where there can be some negotiation, but hyper-regulating every single aspect is creating an environment where nobody can succeed and nobody can flourish and maintain a habitable apartment and suitable relationship between the landlord and a tenant. Thank you.
Next is Dennis Gibbia.
Good afternoon, or good evening. Just 2 quick points. The more we regulate, the more that's going to cause delays. And if you're a contractor, you're going to leave. So if you tell the contractor, you can start Monday, but you can't, we have to get permission from the board, so you can't work Tuesday or Wednesday, they're not coming back because they got to work. They're going to go somewhere else. So I think you should take that into consideration. The other thing is, I didn't see, maybe I missed it, but what if a tenant causes a problem that causes people to have to move? Is that tenant going to be responsible for that, or is that just all on the landlord? I don't know if that was discussed. I didn't hear it. Thank you.
Okay, I have another public comment from Alan Bear.
Hello. I like to keep our places in nice condition so people can live in a great place. And so when we need to repair something, I try to get a contractor out. They give me a 2-hour window, 3-hour window, sometimes a 4-hour window. And then sometimes maybe the plumber gets caught up on a previous job, so it's going to be later. Are you going to, now, if there's a sink that's clogged and I've got to get permission from the RSD before I can even have the plumber come, or if the plumber's late, so it's going to have to be the next day, it might take extra days to get the repair done. Now, you're concerned about habitability, so am I. And I want to keep the place nice. But if you create rules that make it more difficult for me to make the place nice, for instance, if you say, well, you know, the tenant has to give permission and agree with the particular hours of day or something that work can be done to fix the drain or the faucet or whatever it is, it might be working against yourself. So I hope that you just keep a practical mind of things, the way that contractors have schedules where for them, a 4-hour window that's an appointment, you know, and you take it or leave it. So I want to get it fixed as fast as possible. I don't want to get like, well, first I go to Helen and then she's got to hire 3 new staff members so that they can get to my thing and make sure that it's okay, and then get back to me, and then I can call the plumber, and now he's not available at that time anymore. So just please try to keep it simple so we can keep our places nice. Thank you.
Next, we have one on Zoom. It's the Pasadena Poolside Tenant Association.
Hi, can you hear me? Good evening.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm a co-founder of the Pasadena Poolside Tenant Association, and I wanted to share, and I would say good evening, everyone. Sorry, audience included. Preparation
Sorry, speaker. We're having a little bit of trouble understanding you. I don't know if you've got your phone too close, but it's a bit difficult for us to hear you clearly.
Can you hear me better there? Is that better? Good?
Not really.
Okay, how about there? Okay. So I'll attempt here. Preparation for tenant dislocation is key. I'm going to address Board Member Bell's point about the kinds of work that come up. Mold remediation due to moisture damage is one of them. And on that point, landlords and management.
I'm sorry, speaker, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm really sorry to do this. I can't understand anything you're saying. I'm not sure if it's your device or whatever, but it's just really hard to understand what you're saying.
I can try to log back in.
I'd rather try to hear what she has to say. Maybe you could also write to us.
Is it really low? Is that what's happening? Is it really low?
It just sounds like you're in the bottom of
I
a
didn't
barrel.
even understand what she just said. I mean, this isn't a, yeah, it's,
Okay, so I'm going to try to address it, and if not, I'll just log back in. But I really need to let you know that from a personal experience, I would like to share that our family actually lost tens of thousands of dollars, several thousands of dollars due to mold remediation when we were displaced this year. And it happened in like 60 days. I have so much data I would like to share with you. So I'd like to share that with the board so that you can understand the mechanics of what happened to our family. Now, I think we do need some oversight or some monitoring of the dislocation process, because it's too dangerous of a situation to just let a tenant or family be left out in the lurch. There's a really easy way that this can happen. One, there isn't any trust between the landlord and the management, and the tenant. So when that happens, you need a mediator from the city to help expedite the process of dislocation so that it can be done safely and properly. And when you have a documented history of retaliation, harassment, and nuisance from management, there isn't going to be the ability to take their word at face value about an alleged non-habitability claim. So that would include how a tenant who is facing dislocation may need to do a rescheduling of access under Chapter 11 AC access. But when the management is not willing to engage in that, then that leads to 3-day notices. So this can also happen when the rental agreement is treated as if it supersedes our rights to reschedule. And I have found this to be the case. I'm going to be sending a bullet point list in the near future to give a summary to the rental board to understand what we went through, because I think that you could make a difference in adding some kind of oversight of the dislocation process. I'm going to repeat again, our family is in several thousands of dollars of debt because the landlord and the management avoided funding our hotel stays. And hotel stays, they go up and down just like the stock market. The price rises and it's worse on weekends. And some of them have limits on how long you can stay. We didn't know how long we were going to be out, but we ended up being out over 60 days, okay? And our management is telling the cities that we were only out 29 days. This is unbelievable. You have to learn the mechanics of what happened to us. Not only is it a tool that can be utilized by bad actors, it can also make good landlords look bad. And it can also make tenants...
Thank you. That concludes your time.
And Speaker, I would, there were many of us around the days who were unable to understand, unfortunately, what you were saying, but we are very eager to know clearly what you were saying. If you would be willing to send in a summary of your comments to rentalboard@cityofpasadena.net, we would be very grateful so we could read your comments. I personally was not able to understand just because of the acoustics of your phone speaker what was being said, but it sounded important. Thank you.
That concludes public comments on item 3.
All right, so see we've got folks in the queue. Member Nahara?
Yes, just from the public comment, I wonder if it's good if staff, next time this comes up, if they give us like an example of, just so we know, like what kind of projects landlords ask for 30 days, like what repairs that entails, and how often that happens in the city of Pasadena. Just so we know, like how often this is relocation is needed for repairs that last longer than 30 days.
I can tell you now that we've received only one request ever where the landlord has approached us knowing that the repair was going to require more than 30 days. And it actually, we're still processing that request. It appears it's not an actual substantial and necessary repair.
Okay. Just keep that info for the next presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the chair has asked me to remind the board and the public that this is something that's required by the charter. Again, this is under section 1806. And it does say that the board shall promulgate these regulations to ensure that there is the least amount of disruption for repairs.
All right, Member Dreyer?
Yes, so 2 questions. Does the planning department keep data about permits for over 30 days? If we went to them and asked them, how many cases have you had in the last 2 years? Would that be a better indicator?
We could get that data, right?
It's just, since we've only had one case, maybe it's just...
I have some rough data in front of me that they provided, but we would have to work with them to probably look through their data set and the different work classes to have a better idea of exactly what would be a disruptive repair. But for multifamily properties in 2024, if I exclude remodels, there was 203 permits issued. In 2025, there's 563. And in 2026 so far, there's been 228.
And how many substantial remodels?
Remodels, I'm excluding that from these totals, but yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, they have other categories which may be excluded as well, but we can work with them to further, but that's a very rough number at this moment.
Okay, well, I'm glad you had the data in front of you. That's good. The other thing I wanted to ask is, I just want, I'd like our attorney to let us know whether the statement made by the paid lobbyist for the Apartment Owners Association, that we don't have the authority to regulate anything under 30 days. Is that correct?
So a little bit ago, I had mentioned the fact that the charter says shall. So this is a requirement that the board create regulations that put parameters around repairs and how those can be the least disruptive to the tenant as possible. So that is direct language from the charter itself. That is direct authority to make sure that the board is making that, as easy as it can possibly be on the tenant, recognizing that it does need to happen.
But that's different from the time frame. He was basically saying that we can only make such regulations for landlords who will, for tenants who will be displaced for 30 days or more. That's what he said. I think that's what he said.
Right.
I'm
So
not listening, but I think that's what he said.
well, what the charter does say is that if it is going to be 30 days or longer, the landlord has the option to evict for that purpose. If they know this is a planned project and it will take a good amount of time, then that is something where that is the landlord's option. And the tenant does have protections, they have relocation assistance, right to return, that sort of thing. If it's an emergency, if it's one of these things that, it's unplanned and that needs to happen right away, there's nothing currently protecting tenants for those situations. And that's the purpose of these regulations.
So we have the authority to do that.
Yes.
So he's wrong. Okay.
Anything else, Member Dreyer?
No.
All right. Member Bell?
Yeah, also just a quick comment. It's not usually my line of work to explain when people can be evicted, but as one of I think Mr. Jebbia mentioned, damage caused by the tenant, it's specifically in the code that it's called nuisance, to commit or expressly permit a nuisance in or cause substantial damage to the rental unit or to the unit's appurtenances, so the common areas of the property, et cetera, is a cause for termination of tenancy eviction. So, to the tenants listening, don't do that. And also, if you, what was the other case? Oh, you don't let the repair people in or your landlord in with proper notice, also a cause for eviction. So, and I also, I have definitely run into tenants who are, someone else mentioned the tension and the lack of trust between tenants and landlords. That does exist. And sometimes tenants go so far on that mistrust that they won't let the landlord in at all, which is not good. And you have to, as long as it's a legitimate purpose with 24 hours notice, you have to let them in, or otherwise you can be evicted. So there is recourse, on the other side of the ledger for that. I failed to mention earlier, I really loved this staff report. It was really thorough and it gave some great options, and it was really nice. So thank you.
Stanko, you can get your gold star on the way out. It'll be an actual gold star. That's how good the report was. Yeah. All right, Member Wernberg?
I just wanted to address Ryan's comment about the nuisance and think if it's tenant caused. I don't know necessarily that it was something malicious. I've had experiences where somebody dropped something heavy on their toilet and broke it, and water was leaking everywhere, and it was tenant caused, but it was not malicious. I had somebody pick up a really cool Halloween costume from Goodwill and then believe that they had infested their unit with bed bugs. Fortunately, that wasn't the case, but there are situations where it's not malicious, and I wouldn't want to evict somebody for those things, but there are situations where repairs could be necessary from something negligent and unintentional. So I do think some kind of clarification around potentially if it's an accident or tenant caused some responsibility there. That's another case where renter's insurance is really helpful as well. So.
Thank you. And thanks both of you for actually, as I said earlier to Manny's question, like, yeah, not letting your landlord in for repairs is totally grounds for eviction. And my good rule of thumb to all tenants I used to advocate with was you just want to be a good tenant. You want to do everything good faith, and you don't want to get yourself evicted because you think you're getting one over on your landlord by not letting them in to make repairs. It's a very terrible way to lose your housing. So the body's given a lot of thoughts and feedback on this item. I'm giving you 5 more seconds if there's anyone else who hasn't said their piece, but I think per our usual style, I hope you've got more information than you needed, but hopefully it's helpful. And really do appreciate you listened to us the last time in terms of like not only breaking out the different jurisdictions, but also the topic so that we can better read the report and best use of everyone's time. So thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and go to item 4. This is the Rental Registration Ad Hoc Committee report back. I'll pass it to the committee lead, Member Wernberg.
Thanks. Do we have the slides? Okay. So I just wanted to share the results from the rental registry survey that we did a while back. And I do want to preface this with generally people respond to surveys and provide feedback when they feel passionately about something. So a lot of the feedback is negative, but I've separated negative comments about the program versus the user interface. So this is all pertaining to user interface and functionality. The first slide, I'm going to read it, even though I'm not a fan of reading slides, but for the benefit of listeners as well. 40% of the respondents said that the portal didn't solve their issues. 34% called the site difficult, confusing, or not user-friendly. 11% had to call, email, or visit in person because the site didn't work. Next slide. And then these are some of the comments that people made. Some things do not work without contacting the office, very non-intuitive. I had to call someone to walk me through it. Every year we go in person and don't use the website. Instructions were extremely difficult, had to have a representative walk me through on the phone. Next slide. So these are some areas for improvement that we've identified, and several of them should be addressed in the new user interface that's going to be introduced before the next registration cycle. The exemption process, the instructions clarity, payment and invoicing, public portal search and results, support access and escalation. Again, with the users that had to call, email, visit to resolve their issues, trying to utilize the website. Next slide. The exemption process is one of the big standouts that's really unclear. So I think having a more tailored interface for that, more instruction on that, some examples of like cases that are commonly asked about. This step drives more had to call comments than any other single topic. Owner occupied units, section 8, ADUs, and multi-address single lot properties were the most common sources of confusion. Next slide. So these are some suggestions for remedying these problems. Add a decision tree or wizard for exemption eligibility instead of open-ended fields. Publish plain language definitions for things like owner occupied, Article 18, Section 8, Costa-Hawkins, and have those linked from the steps so that if they're not understanding what those specific examples mean or items mean, they can look within the screen to figure out what their next step is or if they fall under any of those things. Make clear that an approved exemption doesn't need an annual re-request. I'm not sure actually if that is or is not the case, but the fact that people don't understand that means that it's not very clear. Add examples for common edge cases such as duplexes with owner living in one unit, ADU only exemptions, multi-address, single lot. So finding these cases that are commonly asked about, it would save a lot of staff time and resources if we just had those examples at the ready so that they wouldn't have to call for every single one unless it was an actual special case, very different situation than just the run-of-the-mill examples that I just listed. Next slide. So the clarity of the instructions were rated at 45%, unclear, extremely unclear, confusing, not intuitive, and not user-friendly were the most common phrases across the entire data set. This is the broadest usability issue, and it's not isolated to one step. It's a common line throughout the entire process with all of the responses.
Sorry, Emily, I want to point of order. We have two board members having a side conversation.
Thanks, Christine. So yes, this was a common thread throughout the entire process. And the questions that we had, it was very comprehensive, and we asked for ratings and feedback and answers on very specific steps throughout the entire registration process. Next slide. So these are some suggestions for the instruction clarity. Add inline tools and tips to help text next to fields rather than a separate instructions page so that they don't have to navigate away and back. Break long instruction pages into one step per screen with a persistent continuous flow. Add a short walkthrough video or annotated screenshots for the registration flow. That was something that we heard a lot of feedback about, that there were just little hang-ups where it wasn't completely intuitive on how to move from one step to the next. User test the flow with actual property owners before the next release. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but that's a suggestion. Next slide. 38% found the payment invoice step difficult or somewhat difficult. And this one's really important because this is where we get our money from. And we want to make it easy for people to pay us, not difficult for people to pay us. And this is where the had to call spikes the most sharply. Respondents repeatedly couldn't find the invoice, didn't know they owed money until a late fee hit, or wanted to avoid card processing fees. Next slide. So these are suggestions to address the payment and invoicing step. Show a persistent amount due, outstanding invoice banner immediately after login. Add ACH or e-check as a payment option. I know that's in the plans, but I don't believe it's currently available. It will be. So, and I'm still going to harp on that until it's actually, what date is it? Okay, September 1st. So I'm still going to hold that up until it's actually implemented, but September 1st. So very shortly, that'll be an option. Surface payment confirmation immediately. So removing the need to manually refresh. So if somebody pays and it doesn't say invoice paid, they're wondering, did that go through? Did that not go through? I think that's always nerve-wracking when you're not sure if your payment went through or not. Clarify whether payment can happen before or only after registration is approved. I believe it's after it's approved, but that's not clear if people are asking this question. Next slide. This is for the public portal search and results. So this is for the public side of it, public-facing side, where members of the public or tenants can look up their property and see the details about their property if their property is registered. So 29% found the search bar or search results difficult, unclear. The parcel number search has the highest non-user rate at 28%. So you can search by address or parcel number, but there have been some issues with the address lookup functionality. The parcel search is more accurate, but it's difficult to find your parcel number. So it's not, even though it's more accurate, it's not the most user-friendly. So address matching failed for properties that clearly exist in the system, and several respondents didn't trust or discover the parcel search option at all. Next slide. So the suggestions for this would be to fix the address matching logic. This is difficult to do because we're pulling the data sets from other places. So that can create some issues with the matching, but it is something that would make it a lot more user-friendly for the majority of people that might have occasion to use the system, not just the landlords that use it for registration, but the public at large, stakeholders. Council members have mentioned their district, they'd like to know more information as well. Make the XX matches found link visually obvious, styled as a hyperlink. So this is also kind of in the search field. it's kind of like catching up with you when you're typing it in. So it's not very clear to know if it's been, if it's pulling up the address or if it's still searching. Fixed mobile touch responsiveness, property detail pages displayed inconsistently in portrait versus landscape. Add a persistent back to search results affordance instead of relying on the browser back button. So those are just some suggestions for that portion. Next slide. Support access and escalation. So again, 11% of people explicitly said they had to call, email, or visit in person because the site didn't resolve their issue. And this is, again, running through nearly every other priority. When the system fails, there's currently no visible, fast way to get help. Next slide. So to support access and escalation for users trying to register their properties. And again, this is kind of crunch time because most people do it all, close to the registration date. There's about a month and a half period when it's really, people are really doing this. So there's a deadline for them. And then also the staff it's an all hands on deck situation. So it is kind of difficult because everybody's working on registration. But publish a direct phone number or helpline on every step, add a live chat or request a callback option to reduce hold time complaints, reduce response time lag on phone and email inquiries. Several respondents cited multi-day waits. And then frequently mentioned, low effort to implement. These are some quick wins that we could do. Reduce email frequency, let users opt out of reminder emails once a task is complete. Add a clear paid or complete status indicator so people stop getting reminders for finished tasks. Allow entering rent increases and adding tenants before the effective move-in date, not only after. That's something I personally would really appreciate because generally people give their notice 30 days in advance and putting it into the system, if you can't put it in until they actually move out, or if you can't put a new tenant in until they actually have moved in when they've signed the lease ahead of time, it just creates like a break in the workflow. And especially for people like me that don't have dedicated staff doing that, it's just me doing it in my spare time. When I think about it, it's a lot easier if I'm able to just do it when I have all my paperwork done instead of, oh, I can't do it for 30 days, put a reminder on my calendar, then I need to go in and add this to the portal. Go back one. There was one more thing. Pre-fill next year's form with last year's data instead of requiring full re-entry. So that's something, some of the comments said that they liked that it was pre-filled, and then others said that it wasn't pre-filled. So I'm actually not sure if it carries over or not. Okay, it does carry over, but some people are obviously missing that, or there's some disconnect there. Next slide. So what's already working? 33% found accessing the public portal easy or extremely easy. This is the best rated step in the flow. 27% found the payment invoice step easy or somewhat easy. 20% found the property detail pages helpful or very helpful. So that's good. That's from the public facing side. And then again, this is always, the shining star is the people that do interact with staff always have amazing things to say about the staff, say the staff do wonderful work, very helpful, very friendly, very patient. People said you make payments easy access and easy to update info. I like the property photo. The staff was helpful when I needed assistance. And respondents frustrated with the website often praise staff once reached, a real asset worth formalizing as a supported channel, not a last resort. So maybe, again, those suggestions, maybe having the phone number there, having a chat function of some kind or a callback function also might help the process a little bit, especially since people generally have a positive interaction with the staff. So a way to kind of mitigate some of the dissatisfaction there. Next slide, is that the end of it? Okay, so that's basically in a nutshell the information that we got through the survey. And a lot of this is already being implemented in the new user interface, but we want to make sure that some of the specific suggestions are things that are going to be implemented in that. And then there's also training that's going to happen so that users can be prepared to use the new interface that's rolled out before registration.
When 3DI comes to do the presentation at our next scheduled meeting, we will be recording that as well so that we can put that online and available we'll be doing the same outreach and the same video recordings with step-by-step functions, and the functionality of the new system that we've been working with 3DI for some time now will address many of these issues.
Yeah, so 3DI is going to be presenting at the next meeting, August 20th, correct? So they'll be here, and public comment will also be available for that presentation.
And just to note this, first of all, thank you for this presentation, committee and committee lead Wernberg. This is going to be posted on the this presentation is going to be posted on the rent board site after this meeting, right?
It's already there.
Oh, excellent. Beautiful. So
Thank
if you
you.
want to review it, that's great. Before I take any additional thoughts from the board members, I just want to say thank you to the entire committee. It was Member Bell, Member Wernberg, Vice Chair Rodriguez, but I hear this is your, Member Ms. Robian. I'm really grateful that the four of you stepped up to serve on the committee and to spend a lot of time going through this. Member Wernberg, this is a very impressive slideshow, so thank you, because I believe I was reading a lot of the details in this maybe when you handed it out, but I think this is more compelling. It's really good to know what's not working and also good to know what is working. And I'm not surprised because I have heard it from members of the public, but it is great to see that staff, we know they're helpful, but it's great to get that shout out, because I can imagine from a landlord's perspective, if you're trying to register this, I'm just thinking of when I do my taxes and that like stress as it's ticking away and you've got a deadline. So this is great. I would say just to echo one of the things you lifted up, the public portal. So when I last year when I went to see if my landlord had registered the property yet, they hadn't. So that was a fun call to make to the department. But I noticed that it was a fun call to make to the department. It was, because I had told the landlords for months they needed to register the property. But what I did notice was, depending on how the property is listed, when I typed in my own address, so that would be a great thing to sort of tease out. But when I think about the priorities, I'm still pretty convinced there are more landlords still accessing this system yet, right now where we're at before tenants. But yeah, thank you for lifting all these things, and I hope the department, this is helpful for the department as well.
Yes, thank you.
I hope it's helpful for 3DI. I hope you don't get whisked away to be some sort of consultant for 3DI. That'd be a real bummer. So with that, I've got a queue. So Member Dreyer, go ahead.
On my line, I was going to say that the 3DI could hire Emily as a consultant, and then she'll buy a house. She won't be a tenant anymore. But anyway, that was a great presentation, and for the whole committee, that was really good. I'm assuming that we're not the only city with rent control that has 3DI that has these problems, right? So is this going to be something they're going to make state of the art for the rest of their clients, or do you know?
So they actually have. So we've been working with them for a couple years now, because these same items that you've addressed here have been brought up. And so they've already, some of you who may be using other jurisdictions may even have seen some of the similar one that they have already in production, which is a new state of the art. So that's what we're bringing forward now on the 20th.
Good, okay. And the other thing, I know this is contentious, but when is the right time to bring up the question I've been asking that we talked about at length last time, which is to get a legal opinion about whether or not, I know it's too late for the next round of the rental registry, but at some point I would like to see, and I would like to be able to explain and have a conversation about it rather than just vote it up or down. Because last time Mandy said he agreed with my concern that it was been taking so long, but he didn't agree with me about the substance. So, I think I've been saying this, but we haven't had a real conversation about why it is or isn't needed. What's a good time to bring this up?
I mean, I would actually say at our next meeting, because it's for the priority setting, this is something that as we put together the priorities and sifted through things,
That's
I-
going to require a legal opinion.
Well,
or
I
else
think
it's not
maybe.
worth talking about.
But you could get it on the priority list.
Or have a second opinion.
Correct. I think, I mean, it's not on the agenda, so you're right, we're sort of limited. I'll go as far as I can before I'm wrangled by legal counsel. The first thing is this something the entire body wants to get a second legal opinion about? So I think that's the first fair step. And then the other piece is, which would take the longer discussion, why do you want this? To what end, right? Like, what are you,
Yeah,
what
I'm
are you
prepared
or
to
the
do that,
board
but yeah.
hoping to achieve, right, with the particular added functionality? One other idea I had for you, you can, in terms of just functionality, besides or in addition to the legal question, which has to, if this body wants to get a second legal opinion on this particular topic, that's for the board to vote on. But I think it's also, there's a technical functionality question that you could ask the 3DI rep about at the presentation, as well as discussing this at the priority setting meeting on the 20th.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Member Bell.
Yeah, just really briefly, I also just want to say I thought it was a fantastic presentation. I'm on the committee and I hadn't seen the presentation, and I was like, wow, that was really good. We did all that? But seriously though, props to Emily for putting that together, and it was a lot of like raw data to sort through, and you pulled out some of the the really salient points. And I think it is, I don't know what percentage I would ascribe to each of these halves or parts, but it's at least as much of a list of recommendations for 3DI as it is for our staff. And as you said, some of them are already being addressed in the new iteration of the software, but I assume that they've gotten a copy of the survey. Well, maybe not the roster, some of that's not useful for them, but maybe this presentation or some form of feedback from this survey could go also to 3DI for their, version, whatever comes after this one, because whatever this one for September is obviously locked and sealed, but there'll be another update after that. So maybe some of the other stuff could be incorporated. My sort of like, I've always used TurboTax. Too cheap to hire an accountant, and my taxes aren't that complicated yet, until I become very wealthy and have lots of complicated stock dividends and what have you. But in the meanwhile, I use TurboTax, and it's just gotten better and better over the years. It's just everything you need is just right there. And to me, that would be my go-to, like backwards engineer whatever it is they do, and just do that, and you'd have a really great customer service interface. Yeah.
How much did TurboTax pay you to say that?
No, I pay them.
Anything else, Member Bell?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair?
Yeah, I just want to take time to really thank Emily for this amazing presentation. I worked with you with the committee, and I think you did a really great job of just synthesizing all the information that was given to us, the good and the bad, and made it very easy to understand, the work that we saw. I think you highlighted most of the issues were just being able to use the system, and I think we're trying to just make that process easier for folks. Get to full compliance, but great job, Emily.
Thank you. Helen?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the ad hoc committee and the chair of the ad hoc committee. I mean, this is a great thing to work together to get this moving forward. Although I know some of the things were already in process with 3DI, it still helped to actually have them physically come to your meeting and see and understand that you were concerned about it. And so I think that adds so much value to 3DI, as us being a customer for them. So thank you for doing that. Thank you.
We should get a discount.
I was just going to suggest that.
Well, I stole you.
You stole my thunder. Yeah, the consultant's discount, right? Just as someone who used to sell products, published products in the form of books and textbooks and websites, this sort of user experience and feedback is really, really valuable. Sometimes as a product developer, you sometimes have blinkers on and you don't get the full scope of what would be a helpful enhancement. Member Dreyer, did you have something else in the queue besides my joke? All right. So with that, thank you again, Member Wernberg and the committee. And we'll go ahead and take public comments. This is item number 4, the Rental Registry Committee, Ad Hoc Committee report back.
We have 2 public comments. The first one is Dr. Gary Hampton-Mount-Hotep.
In direct response to Peter Dreyer's talking about legal services or second opinion, that's why I've been advocating for you guys getting your own
No,
legal
you know what, sir? This is the Rental Registry Ad Hoc report back.
I understand
Please stay to topic. Thank you.
I'm making a comment in response to what Peter Dreyer said.
Not how these public meetings work.
Yes, it
Please
is.
stay to the topic on the agenda, the Rental Registry Ad Hoc Committee report back. Thank you. This
Yes,
is your
it
last
is.
warning.
I'm correcting you. That is how it works. I can comment on what your comments are. That's what we're here for. Did everybody get that? That's what we're here for. Okay? I'm talking about criticism. I'm going to play some about more criticisms. Okay? Also, I can say this in regards to criticism. More public people need to criticize this ad hoc committee. We're talking about ad hoc committee. I'm criticizing the ad hoc committee and everything done about it. Okay, that's what I'm doing. And the public needs to cuss. We can cuss. The public can cuss. Yes. Let's see what happens after the meeting, after the ad hoc committee, after this ad hoc committee thing.
You know what,
I'm talking
sir?
about the ad hoc
Please get
committee.
to the point because you're stalling and you're distracting and you're disrupting.
I am to the point and I'm on the record. Everything I said is on the record. So when if this is challenged in court, I'm going to play this in court as part of my defense. That's what I'm doing here. I'm responding directly to you. I have a law degree. I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what the hell I'm doing. I'm going to play the criticism. Okay? I am criticizing. That's what the hell the public is here for. You don't like me saying that, do you? And if you try to stop me, I got more tricks up my sleeve. Yes, I do. I hear you laughing. You're snickering. I can comment on your snickering. You open the door on that. Talk to your attorneys. Attorneys, talk to them. Come here and give them a lesson on what I can say. That's open. This is about the rental registry and about my freedom of speech. And you're out of order for over talking me. See, you guys don't follow the rules. I'm criticizing. I'm criticizing. That's why the public is here. I'm criticizing. That's why your attorneys aren't here anymore because they don't like what I'm saying about them either. I'm criticizing. Okay, we're talking about this ad hoc committee. Okay, I criticize them about the secrecy of it. We need a standing committee about that. I can say that. Okay, I can call you a bad name. I don't want to. I can say a whole lot of things that you're going to be hearing when you try to stop me. Let's see what happens after the meeting. I'm going to say things after the meeting reasonably. Everybody can hear other people talking. How much time do I have?
Thank you. That concludes your time. Next speaker is Simon Gibbons.
First of all, thank you very much to the subcommittee for this work you've done. The registry portal is perhaps the way that most property owners get involved in dealing with the rent department on a daily basis sometimes. And obviously there are things that need to continue to be fixed. Thank you also to the committee who were kind enough to let me show a demonstration of how it works out there in the real world and for taking on board some thoughts that we had. I noticed a couple of things in the slides. I completely agree with the rest of the people who say how great it is working with individual members of the rent department, how easy it is to get things fixed when you manage to get through on a phone call. But the very first slide really caught my attention, that one of the biggest complaints is the difficulty in dealing with exemptions. And I'm hearing a lot about this. I'm hearing from homeowners who have for years been trying to get their exemptions approved, from people who are trying to get clarity on what happens when an ADU is no longer occupied. Exemptions are a big deal. And the way that the city and the department deal with people who need an exemption is threatening. Letters come along saying you're required to pay and you might get to exempt yourself later. And None of us have forgotten that at the very start of this process, 2,500 single-family homeowners got threatening letters saying register or else, which had to be taken back. So please, given that this is one of the most serious elements that keeps coming up again and again, can we fix the exemption process so we stop terrifying people who are homeowners who have nothing to do with this whole affair? Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comments on item 4.
Great, thank you. So at this time, we'll go ahead and do requests for future agenda items as well as brief report back. I've got something before letting the rest of the board chime in. I don't know who got their rent stabilization newsletter. It went to every tenant in the city. It was really impressive. I was very excited to get it a week and a half ago. It's, I live in a complex with 20 units, so it was Pasadena tenant and then my unit number. So no name, but the exact unit number. My only negative comment would be that the Spanish link is a bit.ly link, but I know that there's like, I know you can't do everything, right? I will let you look at my copy. I will not give anyone my copy because I love it so much. But it's very much what members of this board, and my bad eye is on Member Dreyer over there, have been asking for a long time. And it's registration and fees, relocation assistance, just cause eviction protections, the rent increases in the annual general adjustment, upward adjustment of rents, base rent, and rent rollback. There's a lot of stuff on this. It's really beautiful. I want to thank all the board members for all of the suggestions and pushing on this. And I want to thank the department for getting it done, because I think we've all identified that not everyone in the city knows about this. This is one of the best ways I know that now all of my neighbors believe me when I tell them about some of the protections we have, and the fact that it's got the City of Pasadena logo on it. So I just want to highlight it. Thank you to the department. I know a lot of these things are a lot of work. You pivoted to fulfill our requests because of the concerns raised by pretty much all the board members about people knowing about this. So just want to give a shout out for that. Sort of forecasting our next meeting. If we can get all of the items completed before the next meeting, which is our priority setting, we will also have the director's report for us. I don't know if any of you noticed how many city council meetings were canceled this summer. In fact, there was supposed to be a canceled one on Monday, but they held it because it was the last day to discuss any stuff appearing on the November ballot. So they actually had rescheduled their meeting after having it canceled. So when I think about the priority for staff and what they needed to get done, these regulations are really important for our hearings versus a report that was going to go to a body that wasn't meeting for almost a month and a half. That was my reasoning there. So our next meeting, we'll have the 3DI presentation, and we'll also be doing our priority setting. I'm really glad we're doing it in the chambers. It'll be, a good exercise. I'm hoping that the public will be here. I'm hoping they'll remain clothed. We had someone last year show up half naked, stay half naked for our priority setting last year. So not a lot of fun, actually kind of disgusting. So with that, I'll take any additional agenda items or report backs from members of the board. Member Dreyer, I see you are in the queue.
Yeah. So 2 things I just want to ask when we will have a chance to talk about this, or when this will be on our agenda. One is we talked about having somebody from the code enforcement department to come and talk with us about what they're doing.
I'm sorry, Member Dreyer, can you repeat that?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, thank you.
We've been talking about having somebody from code enforcement come and talk to us. I want to know when that's going to be scheduled. And secondly, I'd like to get an update. I hope we all want to get an update on where we are with the discussions with the public health department about doing outreach. And the third question I had is, I didn't get the brochure. So is that because I'm not a tenant and it didn't go to homeowners?
Yeah, only tenants get that.
It went to landlords, but it did not go to homeowners
Okay.
exclusively. However, I can mail you one.
Okay.
I'll make sure you
Yeah.
get it in the mail.
I think it would be good for homeowners to know that people,
It's just the cost,
yeah,
right?
okay, yeah. All right.
But for you, we'll make an exception.
Yeah. Member Dunlap?
Yes, I actually wanted to reinforce what Allison brought up about the newsletter, how good it was to see that. I have to say, we had sort of a trickle in at our group. I didn't get mine for about 5 days after everybody else. Oddly, 2 people never got them. But the thing of all the tenants in a couple of different buildings that I've spoken to is the little piece down on the bottom about rent interest on security deposits. Every single member, a person that got it, reached out to me about that and said, I didn't know we got interest on our security deposits, and we've never gotten any, so what do we do? So it was interesting to see that they really read it and they saw something that they didn't know about before. So I really appreciated having this, and it was very well done. So thank you.
Kudos to our team, especially Anthony working on this, and Will Ponza, and our actually entire team who worked as the editing body for this big, huge document. So it was really monumental. I do want to say, if you didn't get one, you can reach out to us. Maybe we can send it to you. But thank you. Can I give one other shout out? Just to let everybody know, registration starts September 1st. So, and it ends October 31st for this registration cycle. So please keep an eye out. We're going to be sending out a lot of mass media on training. And again, we do open our doors purposely to actually have some of our landlords who love to come in, and we see them every year. And they, bring our gifts for our staff every year to help with the registration process. And so some of them just enjoy doing that, and they really do like coming in. And so we'll start that process early September.
Member Dreyer, is that you in the queue?
No, but I did want to ask a question anyway. I totally get the spirit of what you just said, Ellen.
Yeah, can you turn the mic on?
I totally get the spirit of what you just said, and I agree with all of it. But I think clients of the city giving gifts to the staff is probably illegal.
What I'm talking about is baked goods, and we can accept baked goods. We don't receive gifts. I want to make that clear. Just for everybody here, I do want to make that clear. Thank you. We have somebody who comes in, for example, and brings her best baklava every year for the entire staff. And in those instances, we can collect it as long as we put it out for the entire staff.
There's no pony that's been delivered
Thank you for
to
making
the.
me clarify that.
No, well, it's a fair concern, right? Like, and Member Nahara, just before I get to you, Director Morales corrected me. Because 3DI, we weren't sure if 3DI was going to be coming to this meeting or to the August 20th meeting. Yeah, I did. We did kick off the director's report to September 3rd. So because when you see the next agenda, it's going to be a long evening.
Is there an appeal too?
Nope, no appeal. No, it's just priorities. Yep. All right. Oh, and so if you haven't already, please complete your survey. That went out. And we're looking forward to full set of discussions at the next board meeting. And with that, Member Nahara, I'll go to you.
Oh, I was going to ask Ellen if she could email me when the lady brings the baked goods.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I will tell you, some come to our open house afterwards. That's mainly where we get the gifts. The baked goods, I need to be careful. The baked goods that come in. And so please come to our open house. We'll be scheduling that soon for December.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and it looks like the end of our queue. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
vacation playing catch up.